Cut A. This is Daniel So on the call.
Good morning, Shiaj. Delegate.
Oh, yeah, they're so busy. Is anybody else on the call?
Good morning, Chairman. So this is Sherilyn Yazzie from Speaker's Office.
Yeah, they.
Good morning, Chair. This is Kristen Lowell from the Office of Legislative Counsel. I was just wondering if we could go over the logistics once we get started, if that's possible.
Sure.
Thank you.
So you'll be covering the HES committee throughout the week, or just today, Ms. Lowell?
I think, Mr. Chair, I think I'm just doing the morning session. The LOC is also today, and so Ron Haven is covering LOC, and then I'm not sure who's going to cover the afternoon session, but I don't think it'll be me. We're just really short-staffed, and we're just trying to manage as best we can, Chair.
Do you know the BNF schedule?
I do know the BNF schedule. The BNF schedule for the oversight hearings is going to be Wednesday, and they're going to take a break Thursday, and then they're going to do Friday. And then from there, OMB has to put all of the budgets together after all of the actions that were taken by the oversight committees. And the comprehensive schedule is, I forget whether it starts the 2nd or the 3rd, but it's over Labor Day weekend.
Okay. All righty.
Good morning. Good morning, Kristen. I emailed you the budget. It's still going through for NNVA.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much, Beverly. Thanks a lot.
Mr. Chair, there's going to have to be a revision to their lineup because they just now sent their budget this morning, and I went by last year's NNVA lineup, and they just barely sent it this morning. So there's going to have to be a revision to the agenda, Mr. Chair. Okay.
So, just...
Delegate Halone's on the line now, sir.
Okay. That makes 3 of us.
Director Zwerline is also on the line.
Good morning, James.
Good morning, sir.
Ms. Martinez, go through that again. Who shall we put in place of Veterans Administration?
Mr. Chair, good morning again. I received the budget this morning from Mr. Zwerline, and I went according to what he sent in. So there was a revision to the NNVA agenda according to what he submitted budget-wise. So I have that ready. The committee is going to have to approve the revised agenda, Mr. Chair.
Ms. Martinez, exactly how do you mean?
The one that's posted on there this morning is from last year because I didn't get no feedback all this time until this morning.
Yeah.
And so according to what Mr. Zwerline sent in, those have been placed on the agenda for the business units to consider.
Mr. Chair, to more directly answer your question, the NNVA is using one business unit this year, and that's business unit 103015. The agency business unit and the Veterans Loan Program business unit are being omitted from the program. They're all being consolidated under the one central administration business unit.
Okay. So I guess the problem is we haven't reviewed it. You're throwing us a curve.
Chair, is anyone from OMB on the line? Maybe, if possible, this is Kristen. Maybe if possible, we can get somebody from OMB just to explain to us the change. I just it's out of my area of expertise, and I just don't know how to shed light on this, Chair.
Okay, Ms. Martinez, can you see if someone from OMB can be on the call also.
They should be on the call. They're first on the agenda. Presentation by Office of OMB. Is there anybody from OMB online? Let me call them again. I have the revised agenda ready after the adoption, Mr. Chair.
Hello?
The most, the veterans binders are over in front with Tremaine. They were dropped off just a while ago. Leonard?
Okay, I'll go again, pick them up.
This change might be a little tough for us to. We might have to put veterans on a different day, especially for we haven't really reviewed the items. And basically, with one business unit, does that mean all assistant is going to come out of the main office again, rather than and kind of like disempowering the agency offices?
Sir, to respond to that question, for general funds and general funds only, we've consolidated to one business unit. When it comes down to the Veterans Trust Fund for the assistance, we did do a consolidation on that from 110 different business units down to 5, and that is one per agency. And the housing program remains the same with 5 different business units.
Mr. Chair, I contacted OMB. They should be coming online.
On my line. Let's see who's all on the call. If we could have everybody identify themselves.
Kristen Lowell, Office of Legislative Counsel, Chair.
Emmett Francis, OMB.
Miguel Helona, you still online?
Morning, sir.
James Werline, Veterans Administration.
Hi, sir.
Beverly Martinez.
Again, but I can't hear anything.
Hello, folks. This is Delegate Daniel. So we're just waiting for other members of the HES committee to get online, and then we'll get the business rolling.
Chair, this is Leonard. I have Honorable Begay and Monica here being up with me.
Mr. Mose, I didn't catch what you said. It was kind of like a whistle.
Okay, sir, I have Honorable Paul Begay Jr. and Honorable Edison Monica here being up with me.
Okay.
The only thing I ever heard from is Vice Chair. I don't know if he's online. So far, we got 5 out of 6.
Okay. In that case, I'd like to call this meeting of the Health, Education, Human Services Committee meeting to order. Mr. Mose, provide the roll call, please.
All right, sir. Honorable Paul Begay Jr.
Honorable Paul Begay, present.
Honorable Carl Russell Slater. Honorable Carl Russell Slater. Honorable Pernell Helona.
Helona's present.
Honorable Charlene So.
Present.
Honorable Daniel E. So.
Here.
Honorable Edison J. Winika. Here. Chair, we have 5 members, constitute a quorum.
Okay, thank you, committee members. This is going to be a little bit difficult, and we'll best proceed in that regard, then going to have to rely heavily on Che Paulbegay and Cecilia Edison Wanika and the rest of the committee members regarding some of this documents that have been substituted at the last minute, and I haven't had a chance to review, but we may have to change the lineup. Pernell, where are you at? Are you at home? And
yes, I'm at the house.
Can you pull up documents on your computer?
Yes, I did. I received those. I'm pretty sure they're the new ones, but I don't. They're the ones that were sent out by Ms. Martinez this morning.
Okay. Okay. So, like I said, I'm gonna have to rely heavily on the committee members. We had roll call. We've got quorum. Cecilia Edison Wanika, could you provide us the invocation, please?
Chair, who do you want to do the invocation?
Honorable Edison Wanika.
Aye, sir.
Hagwashi, Headland Chair, all members of the committee, all those that are online with us this morning. She to that deal Nitra he one lonely Kuruntia not it's the penny big to Chomba Hewinson Zidart one in Nikajo Nika Hochitle in Toronto because I don't know about when it's in that. So the Ninache they need the diet to conch out of the last yan as class A out of the last one issue to nil. But a shame needs in the net up be lashing needs in debate aliagi the nature in it eggy eight of the last ones out of a coho. So the shame in it that with I don't get any blessings that needs in it over either. So that I need more that I need to go. It's the addition being it Asians out of a conde. Cashin of Baho needs in the Dubai. A she needs in the show. A conde. A Baho needs an even nature. She been nature. Hashin so a Denils Johnson to Dilson. A co quite a choba here Winson. A kudik a digine to Chonage and a winner. Kaishini Transni. So the Bahos and the so the hotel Liberton or Bahan. So the photo Nitla put it on Nishi. So the Bohanet Zanda. A Kutuda and she need a hate air. Eddie Benasson, between his zeal. A quarter Hoshia, the Alden, Nini Bana, so I found that out of I see Hano. If you don't know the Astran Kessler and that day, one switch at an and he didn't. Cattle do get a hot either. A quaven now has in so a when I began to heat me. A good end that is the chow that William that I would end. Hashin so I began to get our seat knee. A good end. Hashin so in the other artist for 9 neatly. A quaig. It's one load of a nature. The Picket hit how it near got it's adult. As we had a and I need $8. I could aim the benation, my fashion, so need a seed need. Fashion, so she none down needs as she would $8 could on so the Nina need $8. A coke haggy panda ika. Arudik abenya jaggy based on and take the con the initial but has algo Asian so basis to the Yorkshire. So that art of Shindy basis to the Yorkshire. Saturday at a hotel the bonnet sunny or a penation company can't war. So he pays so good or I such a show either. Or Washington between the day. A quaben nation choir, as you'll be half when it's no. As you'll be getting the teeth. Do to the at a 80 peso, another did so. The nation yard have been other unnistole. I do the larger and larger than Lengy larger and has Tangy to the Hajo even nation, but the unnistole. To the Hashin so are then hidden and Lengy to the large band Saha Keso. To the Ben Yepes on the desk and with ego. It can't nature if they need nation to the yard a Chinese indoless. I don't feel one lawless car. I need to. I need to go. Need all this. I don't get up in nation. As you, Nahachimba need aid all this. Naba need aid all this. I don't Nasadina, I need to jab and Nashabaka needs all this. So you need aid. I don't. Kala show need, Kala, a yawn stand, Kala with aid all this. I don't need to. As you never without. Ajoban seek so even as a codo, Hashin so Adlani Taton at Aheki, so that he saw a Baconits and Obanate Eagles. The Asha need the Benation. The Benyan High is without never need Eagles. A co Bagi wins and yet quite a hack. I don't think I want a teens to have maybe the Fish based neighbor Nation Econ as a man. A quay by Quinton, a conde, con, if it is Tala, the nature, as how was in Sino, could all never taught the other Quinton cut, the Shinda 108 dollars. Ado, by Quinton, I think so a holding Hatas, Nini, the Cocoyat, a nature. At least all engine never and seek his a another with Adolescent. Ado tiltron eta iliago eya como na hitika ti kude na khaigido to wan na thang to eya ta hoinke da to as un soi kro sudin behanada city dole nige biji asai na Jesus Christ, amen.
Oh, thank you for that wonderful prayer. But committee members, the announcements. If not, then let's go to reviewing and adopting the agenda. I think committee members, one of the items that Ms. Lowell wants to have part of the agenda is to go some of the logistics of how we'll proceed during these budget hearings. There's some items that were sent out in addition. There was those budget hearing guidelines and the memo that Ms. Lowell did. I think that's what she wanted to go to the actual presentation by the budget division director and managers. Committee. Shema, Ms. Martinez.
Good morning. I'm going to read the agenda into the record. Agenda of the House Education and Human Services Committee, 24th Navajo Nation Council Oversight Budget Hearing, August 24, 2020, 9 a.m. Presiding Honorable Daniel E. So, Chairperson, Honorable Carla Russell Slater, Vice Chairperson, Place Viva Telecommunications, Window Rock, Navajo Nation, Arizona. 1, call meeting to order, roll call, invocation, announcements. 2, recognize guests, and review and adopt the agenda. 3, oversight budget hearing. 1, presentation by Office of Management and Budget. 2, reviewing the Department of Navajo Nation Veterans Administration FY 2021 operating budget. General funds as follows. Navajo Nation general funds, A, 103015 NNVA Central Office. B, Chinle Agency Business Unit 103016, Business Unit 103017 Eastern, D, Business Unit 103018 Fort Defiance Agency, E, Business Unit 103019 Shiprock Agency, F, Business Unit 103020 Western Agency, G, Unmet Needs, Navajo Nation Housing Program, A, Business Unit New Eastern Agency, 31 chapters, B, Business Unit New Fort Defiance Agency, 26 chapters, C, Business Unit New Chinle Agency, 16 chapters, D, Business Unit New Western Agency, 18 chapters, E, Business Unit New Shiprock Agency, 19 chapters, Navajo Nation Loan Program, BU 103002 Central Office, Navajo Nation Trust Funds, 110 chapters, A, Eastern Agency, 31 chapters, B, Fort Defiance Agency, 26 chapters, C, Chinle Agency, 16 chapters, D, Western Agency, 18 chapters, E, Shiprock Agency, 19 chapters. 5, close the meeting, announcements and adjournment. Mr. Chair, the agenda has been read into the record. However, it needs to be revised according to what was sent in budget-wise. Mr. Chair.
Okay. Committee members, there you have the review of the agenda, and it's committee.
Chair, this is Doug Halona.
Honorable Halona, yes, sir.
Yes, I want to make a motion to do the revision of the budget according to what Ms. Martinez just talked about.
Okay. Motion by Honorable Halona, second by Honorable Wanika to do a revised agenda with Ms. Martinez. I guess to give background, was read into the record year's budget. But as I heard Ms. Martinez before we started, Veterans Administration submitted a new format where all those business units were named off in the reading of the agenda, revised and made into one, I think. And the agency budgets have also been, the 110 chapter units have been consolidated into 5 agency business units. So that's what Ms. Martinez presented here. And for me, this is a surprise, and I haven't reviewed it. That's what, Mr. Halona, that's what you're basically saying, that this new budget that's presented this morning is what we'll address with your motion. Is that what I understand?
Yes, sir. That's correct.
Okay. Cecilia, same question? Okay. Committee members, with that motion, how do you vote? Provide the roll call vote.
Honorable Paul Begay Jr. Honorable Paul Begay Jr. votes green. Honorable Carl Russell Slater. Honorable Pernell Halona.
Halona votes green.
Honorable Pernell Halona votes green. Honorable Charlene So.
I vote.
Honorable Charlene So.
I vote green.
Honorable Charlene So votes green. Honorable S&J Wanika. Green. Honorable S&J Wanika votes green. Chair, we have 4 in favor, 0 opposed.
Okay. Show vote. A vote of 4 in favor, 0 opposed. Okay. We go to by OMB. Let's go to Miss Kristen Logistics.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Excuse me. I'm going to email out the revised agenda right now.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Lowell.
Thank you, Chair. So I know that you have lots of committee members, that is, are going to have lots of different forms in front of them, but I also wanted to call to the committee's attention that you also have a legislation that's in front of you, and even though we're calling this a budget hearing, this is legislation 0173 that the committee is acting on. So I do hope the committee has access to that. I don't know if it was sent out by the advisor, but you can pull it up on the DIB system. And it's, again, it's legislation 0173-20. And the exhibits to that legislation are where we make amendments to the budget. So you're looking at the documents that budget forms, I guess, 1, 2, et cetera. And then you also have in the legislation itself a snapshot overview of the business units, whether it's from the general fund and the fiduciary fund, which is in this case the Veterans Trust Fund. The other form is where you're actually going to make the changes. So B through E. B is the dollar amount changes. C is the explanation of why the changes were being made by the Oversight Committee. D is the place where you record legislative concerns or recommended conditions of appropriation. And then E is the place to record unmet needs. So if there are changes made, we just need to follow the same procedures that we would do during any other legislation, which is to get a motion, a second, and a vote. And then because we're doing this over the phone, we just will need to just probably read things a couple times and make sure that we're clear on everything. The other thing that I wanted to go over is that in this particular situation, as I discussed in my memo, because this is legislation that is in front of you and the committee is not acting in a quasi-judicial capacity, no oath is required put to the presenters, just as if you were doing reports. And that's really all I wanted to touch on, unless you have questions, Chair, or the committee members have questions, Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Lowell. Committee members. There you've gotten some guidelines on how we should proceed to make amendments to the proposed budget for the Veterans Administration. That format will be used for other divisions, budget presentation. What's ALA committee members? Now we go to item number 3, Oversight Budget Hearing 1, presentation by OMB. Mr. Francis?
Yes.
You have the floor.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Chair and members of the Health, Education, and Human Services Committee. I'm over here at my office in the Navajo Nation Museum. We're temporarily housed here because the Administration 1 building is being worked on, and we've been here since last fall. So that's where I'm at, and I hope you got the OMB report. We've been working, trying to work on budgets and so on, that we are pretty much behind as far as getting these reports out. And I think I just sent a copy of the report to Ms. Martinez this morning, and I hope she'll be able to get copies to you. Anyway, I will go through the report. The title of the report is the Navajo Nation Health, Education, and Human Services Committee Fiscal Year 2021 Budget Hearings, Executive Office, which includes Navajo Nation Veterans Program. This report is done by ONB starting August 24 through 27 as far as the budget hearings. The first page after the title page is the table of contents. Part A is the fiscal year 2021 fund type budget summary. Part B, fiscal year 2020 third quarter ending budget expenditure report. Part C, fiscal year 2020 third quarter performance assessment report. Part D, fiscal year 2020 third quarter plans of operation status report. And the last one, Part E, fiscal year 2020 third quarter conditions appropriation summary report. And I will go to Part A now, which is the fiscal year 2021 fund type summary, budget summary. And this next page lists all the budgets that are submitted by the Navajo Nation Veterans Administration, and it lists the general fund budgets, which is business unit number 103015, Navajo Nation Veterans Administration Central Office, business unit number 103016, Veterans Administration Chinle Agency, business unit 103017, Veterans Administration at Crown Point, business unit number 103018, Veterans Administration at Port Defiance, 103019, Veteran Administration at Shiprock, and 103020, Veteran Administration at Tuba City. In fiscal year 20, starting with Chinle, they got 530,000. Chinle got 230,000, Crown Point 185,000, Fort Defiance 220,000, Shiprock 198,000, Tuba City 185,000 for a total of $1,548 for FY20. Going to the next column, which is the FY 2021 budget. And as far as budgets, there's only one budget that came in. Actually, there were two, but the only acceptable budget was the $1,548,000 for Navajo Nation Veterans Administration Central Office only. There are no budgets for the agency offices for a total of $1,548,000. And the last column on the right gives the same numbers. There are no other funds involved at this point. We're just looking at the general funds. The next set of charts lists the fiduciary funds. This is the funds that are given to each chapter on the Navajo reservation. However, again, for fiscal year 21, only the agency will be getting these funds. In the column over to the left, 703, it would be XXX, Veterans Affairs Chinle Agency. In fiscal year 20, they got $769,727. And for fiscal year 21, they would be getting $436,871. Again, this includes all of the fiduciary funds that go to the chapters. Business unit 703, again, XXX, because we don't have a business number assigned. The agency at Crown Point, $923,483 in FY20, $793,105 for FY21. Fort Defiance Agency, $933,045 for 20, $1,407,922 for 21. 703XXX, Veterans Affairs Shiprock, $833,721 for 20, $767,927 for FY21. The next one, 703XXX Veteran Affairs at Tuba City, $820,552,000 in FY20, $808,075 in FY21. In FY20, the total was $4,280,528. In FY21, the total is $4,213,900, and that's the same totals at the far right. The next one is the Veteran Housing Program, and these are by agency, business unit number NO1373, the Veteran Affairs Office at Eastern. Yes. Okay, go on right.
Okay, continue.
Sir, what page are you on, Mr. Francis?
Yes.
What page are you on?
Leonard,
On the very first part is called the FY21 Fund Type Summary. At the bottom of the page there, where it says Veteran Housing, number 12.
Page 4.
All right, sir, we got it. Thank you. Sorry for interrupting.
Okay, business unit number NO1373 Eastern in fiscal year 2020, $779,484. Fiscal year 21, that would be $637,612 for NO1374 Veterans Affairs in Fort Defiance, $779,484 in FY20, $637,612 in FY21. The rest of the agencies, Chinle, Western, and Shiprock, they're all the same for FY20, which is $779,484, and then for FY21 is $637,612. In both, in FY20, it would be $3,897,420. In FY21, the total would be $3,188,060. And overall, for the whole Veterans Office, including general funds, judiciary funds, veteran housing, the total for FY20, $9,725,948. And for general funds only for FY21, $1,548,000. And then in the fiduciary funds for FY21, $7,401,960. The grand total for all of these funds for Navajo veterans is $8,949,960. That completes the report on the fund type summary. The next section is the third quarter ending budget expenditure report. The first part gives you information on the general funds, and these numbers come right off of the financial management information system. So sometimes it's hard for anybody that doesn't know the reports off the FMIS, it's hard to read, but I'm just going to kind of brief you on how to read these reports. On the very top where it says budget status report, this is as of June 30th, 2020. And this report was run on the 22nd of August at 11:20 a.m. And it was run by myself. The next piece of information is it's a general fund. It's for Navajo Nation Veterans Administration. It shows the revenues that are for FY20. $1,683,245. It shows it in the negative because you have to balance out all the budgets that are funded against that revenue. That's why it's a minus. And when you include all the budget items, it should also equal $1,683,245. That's kind of the way to read this report. But starting with the administration, they budgeted $493,937 for personnel, and So far, they have $207,016.59 left for the remainder of the fiscal year. They're at 58.09%. The other thing I want to mention about these reports is at the end of June, they should be around 75%. So as far as spending money in the personnel category for administration, they're behind. That means they're not spending all the money that they budgeted in personnel. The next one, travel expense, $10,794. Apparently, they moved some money around, and that's why the next number, the revised budget, reads different, $18,994. So they look like they moved some money from somewhere else in there. And then they spent $15,935.53. They have left $3,058.47 for an 83.9, which is more than the 75%. So they're spending money in travel. Meeting expense, $10,000 was budgeted in the same amount. They haven't made any changes. $5,250 was spent. Remained in amount of $4,750. 52.5% spending on the meeting expense. So they're a little bit behind on that. $785 in supplies. They also moved some money in there out of the other object codes. So they have $285 in there right now, and they spend $3,842.63. It looks like they have some purchase orders out. That's the encumbered column, where they will buy supplies over a period of time, maybe even to the end of the fiscal year, against the encumbrance, against the purchase order. So they still have $183,997.98 left in the purchase order to spend. But it includes the encumber as part of the expenditure. So they have $54,244.39 left. So they're at 77.59% right now. Lease and rental, $5,137. Revised budget, they moved some money in there out of the other object codes, $27,412.17. They spent $3,005.40, and they have $24,406.77 left, and they're spending at 10.96%. So they're quite behind in spending their money. Communication utilities, $1,565. They haven't changed the number. Actual amount that is spent, $1,403.41. They have $161.59 left. They're spending at 89.67%. Repairs and maintenance, $1,400. They have the same amount. They haven't revised the budget, and they have $1,400 left. They haven't spent any money, so they're at zero expenditure for that. Contractual service, they moved $600. Originally, they started without any budget for this, and they moved some money in there, and they still have $600 left. They haven't spent any of that money. And then the vessel transaction, $6,382, $9,382. They did move some money in there also, and they spent $3,760.69. They have $5,621.31, 40.8% assistance. As you can see, the first two columns of the numbers, there's nothing. That means that they didn't budget anything, and they didn't move any money in there to cover this $518.51 that they spent on assistance. So they're basically in the whole $518.51, which I would say is a minus 518.1%, because they don't have anything budgeted in there. Capital outlay, they have $1,553,245 to start with. as the original budget. Then they moved some money out of here, and right now their budget there is $877 and $869.83. They spent $404,576.01. They still have probably an outstanding contract that they're working with as an encumbrance. They still have $342,741.09 in that contract that is paying somebody to probably do some capital projects or something. They have $130,552,073 left at 85.13%. Overall, they budgeted $1,683,245. The same amount, although they did make some changes in the budget. They did carry some money into different parts of the budget, but they're still the same. The total they spent is $724,157.57, and their encumbrance total is $526,739.07. After they spent their encumbrance, they will have $432,330.36. They're at 74.32%. They're probably less than that because they haven't spent all their encumbrance, but the FMIS report showed the encumbrance as expenditures, and they should be able to expend all of that before the end of the fiscal year. Hopefully, it'll be all spent, but the encumbrance shows it as an expense, even though it's an encumbrance. I just want to go over this one report with you in detail so you can look at the other reports from the Chinle Agency. I'm just going to read the total. They had $230,000 as a budget. Same. They have not added anything. Still the same. They might have made some changes within the object code, but I don't see anything. It's still the same. $106,735.15 is what was spent. No encumbrance. $123,264.85. 46.41% spending level, and it should be closer to 75%. The next one, Crown Point Agency. Again, $185,000 in general funds for Crown Point Agency. They haven't made any changes. It looks like they spent $65,346.69. They have $119,653.31 left. They're at 35% at the end of the third quarter, so they're still a little bit behind. For Defiance Agency on the next page, their budget was $220,000. They did make some changes in their budget, which is under the revised budget column, but the total stays the same, $220,000. They spend $145,471.19. They have $74,528.81 for an expenditure rate of 66.12%. They're a little closer to 75% though, so they look okay. Shiprock Agency, business unit number 103019, $198,000 initial budget, the same. Does it look? Or they did add some money into assistant, $4,000. They took it from somewhere else, so the total budget remains the same. $90,912.33 is what they spend. They still have $107,087.67 left for a expenditure rate of 45.92%, which again is a little bit behind the 75% at the end of the third quarter. The Western Agency, which is the last general funded agency, $185,000 is their initial budget. The same. It looks like they haven't made any changes on their budget. The expenditure rate is $104,415, and they have an encumbrance in special transaction. I don't know what that is. It could be a contract. It could be a purchase order. I'm not sure. $5,595.11 is the encumbrance. So they have $74,989.89 left for an expenditure rate of 59.46%. So that takes care of the general fund at the agency level. And the next page is the Veterans Loan Fund. And this loan is what they call a proprietary fund that's been set up for $15,000 total. And they haven't made any changes to the budget. It's still $15,000. They have spent $2,596.89. They have $12,403.11, and they're spending at 17.31%. That's pretty much summarizes the Veterans Loan Program for fiscal year 20. Going on to the next set of documents. This is the Navajo Nation Chapters Veterans Trust Fund Budget Status Report, again at the end of the third quarter, which is June 30, 2020. And it lists all the different chapters, 110 chapters, starting with Alamo, business unit number 103014. And I think by now you're kind of learning how to read these reports. So I'm not going to go through any of these reports since you kind of heard me talk a little bit about the reports, but mainly they fund meeting expenses, special transactions, sometimes supplies, and so on. So the only thing I can really say about this is quite a few chapters are below the 75%, and quite a few chapters are above the 75%. And you can kind of look at that yourself. At the very last column, it shows the percent of spending for each chapter. And like I said, I'm not going to go through each chapter. It's going to take probably about a week to go through and read this whole thing. At the very end of the list of the chapters, 703124 business unit number, there is a grand total for all the chapters, Veteran Trust Fund budgets. And I just want to read that grand total. And the chapters in fiscal year 20 were funded at $4,857,500. The budget remains the same. They didn't add any money or anything, so $4,857,500. The spending for all the 110 chapters, $3,772,848.90. There are encumbrances by some chapters, $16,669.59. So there are some chapters that probably have purchase orders or something like that are still there to spend money against. And that's basically what the encumbrance does is you spend money against that encumbrance amount throughout the fiscal year. And hopefully at the end of the fiscal year, you're all done spending and so on. Anyway, they have $1,117,981.51. They're pretty much at 75% and they're at 76.98 overall. So it looks good as far as looking at the overall, but as I said, if you look at each chapter, you can see for yourself where they're at as far as their spending. Okay, the next set of documents.
Hello, I got kicked off the line. Where are we at?
Okay, I just finished reading the 110 chapters, Veteran Trust Funds, and I didn't read every budget. I just went and just read the grand total. So, and before I got into that, I did kind of went through and explained how to read the report. So it's basically the same way, even though it's a different fund. It's a Veterans Trust Fund budget for all the 110 chapters. Now, the next section is the Veteran Housing Fund.
Mr. Francis, let me just,
yes.
Ms. Lowell, are we proceeding the way
Chair,
we should be?
No, I'm sorry to interrupt, Mr. Francis. I'm having some anxiety over the agendas, and I was just looking through the agendas, and I realized that things are being done differently at the different committees. And as you guys know, I mostly work with the Budget and Finance Committee, and the legislation is outlined on the Budget and Finance Committee agenda, and I realized that HES does not have the legislation on the agenda, and there's been email discussions with the Office of Legislative Counsel as to whether amendments can be made if you're not acting on the legislation. But this is the time. Apparently, LOC, and I'm still trying to sort this out, Law and Order is like having a master meeting at the end of the week, and that's when they're having voting on the legislation. But I just wanted to clarify that it doesn't appear that that's what's happening here at HES. So what needs to happen is we need to add the legislation to the agendas to make it clear that this is in fact legislation that the committee is voting on, and that you can properly make amendments to the legislation. Mr. Chair, I hope that was clear. I'm sorry, I'm just finding out about all this differentiation right now, Chair.
While we're on the legislation was drafted based on last year's format. Am I correct?
Yes. The legislation was, no. Yes and no. Okay. So the legislation exhibits are different than the information that was presented by the executive director, the binders that he presented today. It is, they're more overview. So the Exhibit A, if the committee has this in front of them, it would make it easier for just to see visually if you have the legislation in front of you. It's legislation 0173-20. There are 5 exhibits. Exhibit A is what I call a snapshot overview. So it's like a one-page depiction of the entire budget. And then exhibits B through E are there to assist the Oversight Committee in making amendments to the budget. So the information that you're getting now is just a different way of looking at the information. It's more of a detailed breakdown. The information in the Oversight budget, Exhibit A, is just really very high-level summary. And then exhibits B through E are where you record and reflect the changes that have been made. So in the memo that I wrote, I was basically saying that the committee needs to maintain a quorum, and that you're treating this as you would any other legislation that comes in front of you, which is why you are not acting in your quasi-judicial capacity. You're acting in your capacity as a legislator, which means you have a legislation in front of you, which also was one of the reasons why I insisted that the 5-day comment period be over, because you actually need to be out of the comment period before you can act on the legislation. So this is your time to make amendments to the Veterans legislation. So our exhibit doesn't reflect that. Not exhibit, I'm sorry. Lost the word. Agenda doesn't reflect that. So I think the best practice would be to have the agendas reflect that this is actual legislation that the committee is considering. Now, I realize that Mr. Francis is giving you additional detailed information, and that's part of your decision-making process. So just to recap everything I said, I think the best thing we should do going forward is to revise the agendas to reflect that there is, in fact, legislation the committee is considering. And my deepest apologies for not catching this sooner. I should have caught that and brought this to the committee's attention, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, this is Beverly.
Go ahead, Ms. Martinez.
Last year we adopted all of the legislations at our revisits, and then we did all our resolutions on the last day. That's how we did last year's. And this is new, this is what she's proposing. But I have a revised agenda ready according to Ms. Lowe's instructions. If you want me to send it out, I can right now, Mr. Chair.
Okay, committee members, Ms. Lowell, I guess in follow-up, we had in the current budget, each of the chapters, veterans funds have business unit numbers, and they have a balance. By converting all those 110 business units into just 5 business unit numbers, what happens to those dollar amounts in those business units that are now existing? And I guess that would also go to Mr. Francis.
Yes, they would just be consolidated. My understanding is that they would just be consolidated. So the money isn't going anywhere per se. It's just the title of it is just going to be in a consolidated business unit rather than individual business units. But this is Mr. Francis's area, so I'll let him give you the information on that, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Francis.
Yes, sir.
That particular question about right now, you reported on the 110 business unit numbers for the Veterans Fund. And in this new budget that's being presented, all that 110 is going to be consolidated into 5 business units. How would each of those chapter veterans groups keep identity to those funds that they currently have?
The way the budget was submitted, it was consolidated into the Veterans Central Office in Window Rock. Or no, not Window Rock. The 5 agencies. So those budgets that were submitted are only budgeted at the 5 agency offices. They're not budgeted at the 110 chapters. That's the way the budget came in. And I did raise a few questions, but again, I guess the President's office is advising the Veterans Program also. So what will happen to these individual business units at the chapters if the program is allowed to consolidate? They will just not be used anymore after this. There won't be any budgets at the chapter level. It'll be mainly at the agency level, and the agency staff would have to work with each chapter separately within the agency to help them do whatever needs to be done as far as providing assistance, buying supplies, and all that stuff. Each individual chapter won't be able to do that anymore if it is consolidated. So the main question is what happens to the business units? they will not be used anymore. There will only be 5 business units instead of 110 business units. That's what's going to happen if you go ahead and approve the consolidated business units for all the chapters.
Okay, thank you. Committee members, what are your wishes? Do you want to address have the legislation be part of the current agenda, or do you want to address it on Thursday afternoon? As I see it right now, if we just proceed, we can't make amendments to the budget. But if
No,
we...
Mr. Chair.
Yes?
This is Kristen. No, the legislation, you can do revisit. I don't know what day you have revisit scheduled for, but I checked the revisit agenda, and the legislation is not listed on the revisit agenda, and it needs to be clear that you are in fact acting on legislation, which means the legislation number and title needs to be listed. And so if you want to make, if the committee, okay, here's the thing. So the committee is hearing the veterans legislation right now. So if you want to make changes to the legislation, or I should say to the budget, then you need to have a legislation in front of you while you're doing that. So I don't know how else to say it, but you can't make amendments to something that's not in front of you.
Shoot. You stay here. I gotta go. Can't wait to meet you.
Okay.
Oh shit! I forgot my coffee.
Helena, you spilled your coffee?
Mr. Chair, I revised the budget agenda again the second time, and I included the legislation in the agenda for Navajo veterans. You want me to email it out, sir?
You mean for today?
Yeah, I just now fixed it. After
Okay,
OMB, the legislation will be read into record, and you can make amendments
according
to Ms. Lowell's instructions.
Okay. Committee members, we've worked ourselves into some kind of dilemma. So to correct it, I think we're going to have a motion to suspend the rules so that we can revisit the agenda, revise it to have the agenda, the legislation to be read into the record. And then from there, then we can basically let Mr. Francis, let's revise the agenda to include the legislation. And we'll keep proceeding with Mr. Francis's presentation, OMB presentation. Then we'll go to legislation 0173-20, have it read into the record, and then that's when we will have to then give Mr. Shoreline 10 minutes, and then from there the committee can do question and answer, and then possible amendments to the legislation and the budget. AILA committee members.
Chairman, motion to revise legislation as tracking number 0173-20 read into the record.
Okay. Who's second?
Honorable Paul Begay.
Okay. Committee members, it'll be a motion to suspend the rules so that we can, because we had already adopted the agenda. So we'll suspend the rules and then add 0173. And then we'll continue with Mr. Francis's presentation. When he's done, then we'll address the legislation with AILA committee members. Mr. Mose, roll call.
All right, sir. Honorable Paul Begay Jr. Honorable Paul Begay Jr. votes green. Honorable Carl Russell Slater. Honorable Pernell Halona.
Vote green.
Honorable Pernell Halona votes green. Honorable Charlene So.
I vote green.
Honorable Charlene So votes green. Honorable Edison J. Wanika. Honorable Edison J. Wanika votes green. Chair, we have a vote of 4 in favor, 0 opposed.
Thank you, committee members.
Mr. Chair, excuse me.
Yo.
Does this include all the other agendas to revise them? Or just veterans?
Nope, all
Right
of them.
now, let's just, the one for tomorrow, we'll revise it as we visit each, day.
Why don't, it would be much cleaner if he publishes them now, Mr. Chair, rather than having to amend them at the committee level. But I'll let you decide how you want to do that.
Okay, let's see.
If you would prefer to do it at the committee, then that's your discretion.
So the way we're set up, well, the thing is the agenda that we adopted was just for today. And what we're revising is just for today. Then,
correct.
And then tomorrow, then even though they're published, those agendas for each of the other days, we're going to have to amend it each day because they already went out for the 5-day comment. That's
No,
how
the
I
agendas.
see it. Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, the agendas don't have a 5-day comment period. The legislation has a 5-day comment period.
Yes.
So the legislation has a 24-hour notice requirement. So the one for today, you have an afternoon. Maybe that would be best to revise at the committee. Maybe the other ones can be reposted on the website, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Miss Martinez.
Yes, sir.
Back to you. What's your advice?
I can revise all of them and then insert the legislation into all of them and then resend it out again. So it's just adding in the legislation
Okay.
into the agenda, Mr. Chair. It's different from last year. That's all. Last year we adopted it at the end on revisits.
Yeah.
Well, the legislation, I don't know how much clearer I can make it, but the committee is acting on legislation and that has to be reflected in the agenda, Mr. Chair.
Yes, I understand. And that's with this motion, that's what we're doing. But what I'm saying is for tomorrow's agenda, Wednesday and Thursday's agenda, it seems like we would adopt a daily agenda with the legislation included.
Yeah, that I'm just. How do you want to handle it? Do you want to do it amending it each day, or do you want to repost the agenda?
Okay, the budget hearings don't have to have 5-day comment period. It's just reposting, right?
Correct.
Okay, because the others the legislation has already had the 5-day comment period. Okay, we'll proceed with a daily agenda with the legislation. So repost the agendas for tomorrow and then for Wednesday and Thursday. But let's do this motion where we're going to suspend the floor rules to revise the agenda to include 0173-20. Mr. Mose.
Mr. Chair, so each agenda is separate each day?
Yes.
Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Did we do the roll call vote on that?
Just the floor rule? Yes, sir, we did. 4-0.
Okay, so now we'll go back to Mr. Francis. Can you finish your presentation? And then we'll have the legislation read into the record.
Yes, I will finish the presentation. Not very long to go. I just finished the 110 chapters expenditure reports. Right after that is the Veterans Housing reports by agency. Business unit number NO1373 Eastern, $800,000 left. The same with NO1374 45, $800,000 left. With Chinley, business unit number NO1375, $800,000 left. NO1376 Western, $800,000 left. None of this money has been spent this year, so the funds are still there. NO1377 Shiprock, the total $800,000 is still there. So that completes the part on the expenditure report, and we're into the next part of the report, which is the program performance report. And for the third quarter, Veterans Administration, Business Unit 1033015, all the way down to Business Unit 103020. Pretty much looks like they're close to the three. The 3 means that they're exceeding goals and measures. 2 means that they're meeting goals and measures. 1 means that they're not meeting goals and measures. So there's a few ones like Shiprock Agency Business Unit 1033019, second quarter and third quarter. That 1 means they're not meeting their goals. Eastern Agency, Business Unit 103017, 1.4 for first quarter, 1.2 for second quarter, and 1 for third quarter. They're kind of going down a little bit. So, but looking at the overall, including the hello.
We can still hear you.
Okay. Including the business unit number N01XX, which is, I guess it's administration. They're all at once, meaning that they're not meeting their goals. The overall average for the whole Veterans Administration, first quarter 2.1, second quarter 1.85, third quarter 1.64. So they're below meeting their performance level at the end of the third quarter overall. That's the way to read the report. Going on to the next section, which is third quarter plans of operation report. This report shows the plans of operation for all of the executive offices, which includes the veterans. And the Veterans Administration offices are marked off in yellow, and they have different legislation for these offices that were established. The general fund offices 103015 all the way down to 103020 were established by HEHSCAU-12-16. All of them were done back in 2016. Those that are funded by the Veterans Trust Funds, they were established by CJY-46-98 and HEHSCAU-12-16. The earlier one was 1998, established the Veterans Trust Fund business units, and then the later one, the committee established in 2016. So The NO 1XXX, which is, I guess, is the housing program CS48-13, was established in 2013. And then below, there's explanation of each of these legislation. CJY-46-98 established the Navajo Veterans Trust Fund. CS-48-13 relating to health, education, and human service, budget and finance, law and order, and NABIC committees. Amending the Navajo Veterans Trust Fund 12 NCC section 1171 to provide for equal distribution of the annual comprehensive budget amount between the Navajo Nation Veterans Trust and the Department of Veteran Affairs to construct up to 15 homes and to provide minor renovations and repairs for Navajo veterans, each of the five Navajo agency and accounts for NO 1296 to NO 1300 with the Veterans Housing Program. That's what the legislation is. And then on the next page, it also explains what HEHSCAU-1216 is about, which is to establish the Veterans Program in the executive branch of the Navajo Nation government as a Navajo Nation administration with the office of the President and Vice President of Navajo Nation. So those are the plans of operation for the Veterans Program. Going on to the next section, third quarter condition appropriation summary report. There is only one report, legislative concern number 4. Veterans Program is not meeting in performance goals. The program director shall meet at the end of each quarter with Health, Education, and Human Service Committee to discuss its performance scores. And in the third quarter, there was no response from Veterans Administration on this legislative concern. And that completes my report, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Francis. Committee members, your thoughts on Mr. Francis's report? Chair is open to a motion to accept OMB report presented by Mr. Emmett Francis.
Chair, I'll make the motion. Delegate So.
Shalom, I'll second that motion.
Thank you, Shabiza. Honorable Charlene So, second by Honorable Renell Halona. Any discussion?
Mr. Chair, I have a question. Could OOC respond on the business units being consolidated from 110 to 5, Mr. Chair?
Who do we have from OOC?
This is Robert Willie online, sir.
Oh, go ahead, Mr. Willie. Thank you.
Good morning, members of the Health, Education, and Human Services Committee, Mr. Chair. When we got that question about a month ago from Office of Management and Budget, the problem with consolidating is tracking which chapter each belongs to. So I'm not sure what the division director for veterans has in mind, but consolidating all into agency level, I'm not sure if you'll run into that problem where one chapter may get more funding than the other. That's the only problem that I foresee currently. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Willie.
Chair, Winika?
Go ahead.
Yeah, Chair. Are we going to have the legislature ready to press?
Yeah, after we have a motion and a second to adopt OMB's report, and then after that vote, then we'll go to legislation 173.
Oh, okay.
Any follow-up questions? Okay, All in favor? Mr. Mose, roll call vote on OMB report.
Sir. Honorable Paul Begay Jr. Honorable Paul Begay Jr. votes green. Honorable Carl Russell Slater. Honorable Pernell Halona.
Green. Alona votes green.
Honorable Pernell Halona votes green. Honorable Charlene So.
I vote green.
Honorable Charlene So votes green. Honorable Edison J. Wanika. Honorable Edison J. Wanika votes green. Chair, a vote of 4 in favor, 0 opposed.
Thank you, committee members. A vote of 4 in favor, 0 opposed, chair not voting. We've accepted OMB's report with comment from questions to OOC. We'll go on to new item legislation 0173-20. Ms. Martinez, can you read it into the record?
Legislation number 0173-20, an action relating to Health, Education, Human Services Committee approving and recommending to the Budget and Finance Committee the proposed fiscal year 2021 budget for the Navajo Nation Veterans Administration. Mr. Chair, the committee is the final authority. This has to be read in its entirety. Being enacted, Section 1, Authority A, the Health, Education, Human Services Committee is a standing committee of the Navajo Nation Council. 2 NNC, Section 400A. B, the Health, Education, Human Services Committee is the Oversight Committee for the Navajo Nation Veterans Administration. 2 NNC, Section 401C6. C, each Oversight Committee shall review and make recommendations to the Budget and Finance Committee concerning the budget in accordance with the annual budget instructions. 12 NNC, Section 840A. Section 2, Findings A, the Health, Education, Human Services Committee held a budget hearing and took budget testimony regarding the Navajo Nation Veterans Administration fiscal year 2021. 12 NNC, Section 840A. B, the Health, Education, Human Services Committee recommends to the Budget and Finance Committee a fiscal year budget for the Navajo Nation Veterans Administration. 12 NNC, Section 840A. Section 3, approving and recommending to the Budget and Finance Committee the proposed fiscal year 2021 budget for the Navajo Nation Veterans Administration. A, the Health, Education, Human Services Committee hereby acknowledges the proposed Navajo Nation fiscal year 2021 budget for the Navajo Nation Veterans Administration, recommended by the Office of the Navajo Nation President and Vice President as provided on Fund Type Budget Summary attached as Exhibit A. B, the Health, Education, Human Services Committee requests that the Budget and Finance Committee and the Navajo Nation Council adopt the changes to the budget as set forth in General Fund Comparative Summary. Exhibit B, recommended changes to the General Fund budget. Exhibit C, recommended reductions of appropriation and legislative concerns. Exhibit D, and recommended unmet needs. Exhibit E. C, the Health, Education, Human Services Committee authorizes the committee chairperson or vice chairperson to meet and negotiate with the Budget and Finance Committee on these recommendations. Attached is Exhibit A in the amount of $9,124,960. Exhibit E, General Fund Comparative Summary, listing only Business Unit 103015 in the amount of $1,548,000. Exhibit C, no comment on that. Exhibit D, no comment on that. Exhibit E, there's no comment on that. And then memorandum to Honorable Daniel So from Ron Hayden, dated August 12th, 2020. Legislative Branch Internet Public Review Publication, date posted August 13, 2020, 7:26 p.m. requesting digital comments. Legislative Branch First Report Internet Public Review Summary, posted August 13, 2020, 7:26 p.m. 5-day comment period ended August 19, 2020. Supporting comments, none. Opposing comments, none. Inconclusive comments, none. Signed by Julissa Johnson, Office of Legislative Services, August 19, 2020, 8:15 a.m. Mr. Chair, members, the legislation's been read into the record.
Thank you, Ms. Martinez. The exhibit is the one that had the 110 business units, right? Ms. Martinez?
Mr. Chair, if you go to Exhibit A, you'll have the business units that are on the agenda listed in order. 103015, and then fiduciary funds, 730, 73, 22, 49, 102, 120, and then the housing, N0, 1373, N1374, N1375, N1376, N1377, and N0 1427, Oak Pine Springs Veterans Park. Mr. Chair, on Exhibit A. Mr. Chair, on Exhibit B is the 10/30/16 Navajo Nation Veterans Administration, amount of $1,548,000, Mr. Chair.
Miss Martinez, 0173, when it was drafted, it was using last year's format. But with Mr. Swerline's presentation submittal this morning is a different format. Am I correct?
Yes, sir. I went according to what budgets he submitted this morning, and that's the ones that appear on the revised agenda, Mr. Chair.
Okay, committee member. So, all right. I guess the problem I have, 0173, when it was provided to the general public, showed the 110 business units. And without real action, this budget submittal this morning is different than what went out on 5-day comment period.
Mr. Chair, this is Kristen, if I may.
Yes.
Because this is reflecting an overview, I'm not sure that it's broken down individually. I would like if Mr. Francis could comment on if we need to make an amendment to Exhibit A of the legislation, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Francis.
What was the comment on, or what did you want to know?
Okay,
No.
Mr. Francis. Go ahead, Ms. Lowell.
Mr. Chair, I see Exhibit A is current. I'm looking at it right now, and it's got business unit. It's got the 103015, which is Navajo Nation Veterans Administration, which if I'm understanding correctly, what Mr. Zwerline said, that is in fact the consolidated business unit. And then that's general funds, excuse me. And then the fiduciary funds, they're broken down by agency. There are 5 agencies, and then the housing are separate. So the document that I am looking at seems to reflect the changes that were spoken of. And if Mr. Francis can confirm that, Mr. Chair.
Ms. Lowell, I guess clarify for me, when 0173 was posted for the 5-day comment period, were there the exhibit?
Yes, but again,
the
exhibit.
110.
Sorry.
The 110 business units. Was
Mr.
that
Chair,
what
no,
was
no, I'm not seeing that here, Mr. Chair.
when it was originally posted?
No, Mr. Chair, that's not what's reflected in the document that I'm looking at.
The original one that I sponsored.
Yeah, we're talking, just to be clear, we're talking about legislation 0173-20, and I'm looking at Exhibit A of that legislation, and there are not 110 business units listed on that document, Chair.
Okay, so it was just a general overview.
Correct.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, this is Evan Francis.
Yeah.
There are 2 things that are different from fiscal year 20. The first difference from fiscal year 20 is in fiscal year 20, the general fund business unit from 103015 to 103020, they were funded by each of those business units, but for 21, the way the budget is put together, there are no longer agency funding, or the agency officers are not funded. They're all funded at $1,548,000 at the central office level. There will be not any budgets for the general fund in those 103015 to 10320 for the agencies, which is the way it is now, and it shows on a fund type summary that each agency gets funded. But for FY20, the way the budget is, everything goes into just one business unit, 103015 at $1,548,000. So that's the way the budget is being presented. On the it's chapter fund 703014, I believe, to 103124. Those are all funded at the agency level for fiscal year 21. For fiscal year 20, in my report on the fund type summary, they were distributed to 110 chapters because it will take many pages to give you information on each individual chapters. The FY20 is consolidated for fiscal year 21. They are consolidated at the agency level. They are no longer going to be funded at the 110 chapters the way the budget was submitted. So those are the only two differences that I want to make sure you understand. The general fund portion where it only funds the central office, not all 5 agencies, and the 110 chapters, they will only be funded at the agency level and not at the 110 chapters. That's where the difference is between fiscal year 20 and 21.
Okay, I guess the procedural item, this 0173, am I going to have, or is the committee going to have to make an amendment to substitute the consolidated 0103,015 at $1,548,000. Zero funds for agencies, all at cent. The other one where all the CHAP budget will be at the agency. Am I going to need an amendment to put that in there once this we get a motion?
Were you asking me, Mr. Chair? This is Kristen.
Yes, go ahead, Ms. Lowell.
No, what I'm looking at, Exhibit A, and I just sent it out to the committee members, is consistent with what Mr. Francis has stated. I don't know if Mr. Francis has access to 0173, but it's got the business unit for the Veterans Agency. It's got the business units for the 5 agencies, and then separate the housing assistance, and then the overall business unit for Navajo Nation Veterans Administration. And actually, one caveat is there is a business unit for Pine Springs Veterans Park, and that is for $175,000. But everything that I'm seeing on this Exhibit A is consistent with what has been discussed, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. And so that's what's been read into the record.
Correct.
And that's and I'm seeing that finally I pulled it up, and that's the only exhibit that it. Oh, wait, Exhibit E, no unmet needs. Exhibit D, blank. Exhibit C, blank.
Yes, Mr. Chair. So those, if the committee makes changes to this budget, it'll be reflected in Exhibit B and C. And then if the committee makes or issues rather a COA or legislative concern, that'll be on Exhibit D. And if the committee adds the space for unmet needs or adds figure for unmet needs, that will go on Exhibit E. So those exhibits B through E, changes are made to the budget. That'll be reflected in those exhibits. That's why I have been stressing that you need to know what you have in front of you, because this is in fact the legislation, Mr. Chair.
Okay. And Ms. Lowell, the other OMB's report, Mr. Francis' report, does it need to be incorporated into this legislation regarding?
No, Mr. Chair.
No?
My apologies.
Okay. Committee members.
I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
All right. Committee members, I hope my questions help clarify the how we're proceeding. If we have a motion in a second, then the process calls for Mr. Swerline to have 10 minutes to talk about the budget. Chair is open for a motion.
Motion, Delegate Slater.
So, yeah, this is Phyllis. We have a second.
Chair, I'll second.
Okay, Bishop, Honorable Charlene, so second. Okay, Mr. Swerline, you got 10 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, honorable delegates. So the Veterans Administration for FY21 has been given an initial appropriation of $1,548,000. When you take a look at our budget form 4, you will see that 32 of our 33 positions are calculated to be able to be funded for 12 months with that budget amount. The executive director position will not be funded for the full fiscal year. The fringe benefits amount combined with the salary, that equals the total sum of the $1,548,000 being allocated for the Veterans Administration for this fiscal year. With that breakout, we have no operating funds to be able to operate the administration for the entire fiscal year. This financial discrepancy, this difference, is because the Veterans Administration is increasing the amount of personnel to be able to better serve our veterans. We acknowledge that our program reports are indicating very low marks, and this is due to more accurate reporting of the actual services that the agency offices are providing to our veteran population. And those marks are reflecting the fact that the staff is overwhelmed and not able to provide the services that have been outlined in the previous fiscal year budget requirements. When we take a look at the budget form 3, we can see that the DPM has calculated all of our positions that we expect to be filling during this fiscal year, and our totals equal the $1,074,575. So what we will be asking for is an unmet needs request of $465,327. That will allow us to be able to fund all the rest of our programs, our sub-accounts, our operating expenses, as well as cover the additional personnel line items. We've already spoken with Vice Chair Smith from Budget and Finance, who has agreed to sponsor our request for carryover of the current FY20 funds that are unexpended. We are estimating at this time just under $600,000 will be unexpended at the end of this fiscal year and will meet our carryover requests for our unmet needs for FY21. The business units have all been consolidated to allow for more accurate assessments on our expenditures so that next fiscal year we can better assess whether or not our budget numbers for this fiscal year can be lowered or will need to be increased. As you can tell from the reports on the average spending levels, we have not been spending at the agency as much as we should be. And when we bring all that money to the central administration, it will allow us to better expend for the needs of the agencies without the agencies having to focus on that themselves. Moving into the trust fund, if we take a look at page 14 of the report from Mr. Francis from OMB, page 14 has the chapter of counselor. You will see that counselor has expended 8.27% of their annual appropriation. The chapter of counselor, for example, has 5 veterans. They are not physically able under current trust fund policies to be able to expend their allocation. When we look at a chapter on page 16, and we look at the chapter of Pinedale that has reached 108.96% expenditure. When we reallocate and redistribute the Veterans Trust Fund in a measure that is actually equal, where all veterans have equal access to that funding at the agency level, we will not have chapters that have failed to expend their allotment, and we will no longer have chapters that are overexpending their allotment. When we move on down to the housing program, there has been no expenditure this year because we are continuing to wait for the revisions to legislation CS 4813. Those revisions were being sponsored by Delegate Halona. Included in those revisions were a funding lapse extension because under CS 5617, those housing program funds currently in the program expire at the end of September. So that puts us roughly 36 days away from those funds lapsing, and that is roughly $22.2 million. With the revised legislation and the new policies being implemented, it is our expectation that moving into fiscal year 21, the program will be able to start producing new homes and start performing renovations and repairs as outlined in the current legislation as the program criteria. Then we move on down to the last line on Exhibit A, the Oak and Pine Springs Veterans Park. Under legislation NADIO 3618, that business unit was set up for the Oak Springs, Pine Springs Veterans Park. This is money that is being held in trust for that chapter, for that project. So it is simply recorded on here to make sure that it does not disappear crossing into fiscal years. At this time, that concludes my summary of the NNVA budget for fiscal year 21, and I look forward to your questions. Thank you.
Committee members? Committee members, do you have any questions?
Chair Wanika?
Oh, Honorable Edison Wanika.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, members of the committee, and also the presenter. My concern has to do with for this fiscal year, there's no operating funds for the entire year, and at the same time, there's changing the 5 business units. I mean, changing it from 110 business units to 5 business units. As far as operating funds, would you need more? You said you was going to request unmet needs as far as the need for operating funds, because you're going to establish all the process at the agency level. Would you need more staff at the agency level if you do that? That's my question. And then also you mentioned that you're just under 600,000 carryover, and you said you're going to use a lot of that for the unmet needs. Would that be sufficient, the amount of the carryover, or would you need additional funding as far as operating funds? Thank you.
Thank you for the question, sir. And if I could hear the first part of your question correctly, the budget form 3 has all of the additional personnel that we would need, both at the central agency, at the central administration and at the 5 agencies. There would not be an additional personnel requirement beyond what is listed on the budget form 3. To answer the second part of your question, the carryover fund would 100% cover our anticipated unmet need. That does assume that our estimates on our carryover are correct at just under 600,000, and that our budget form numbers, form 1 numbers are also correct, showing that we would be deficient $465,327. We would not require additional appropriation beyond our FY20 carryover. That is our assessment at this point. Thank you, sir.
Committee members, any follow-up questions?
Chair, Delegate Paul Begay.
Vote. Say, Paul Begay, go ahead.
Good morning. Good morning, SC members. Thank you, Mr. Z, for the presentation. I realize that this is a yearly budget thing. As the director of the Veterans Administration, do you have a 5-year plan or a 10-year plan in place, or anything like that? Some type of plan, long-range plan? That would be my question. Thank you.
Sir, I apologize if I'm not hearing the question correctly. On my end, you were slightly broken, so please correct me if I'm off the mark here. Right now, our 5-year plan is still being developed. We believe that with these personnel changes that we are requesting and implementing based on the budget form 3, that should be sufficient at this time to adequately provide services to our veterans. Obviously, only time is going to tell the effectiveness of the implementation. How soon can we get these positions filled? How soon can we get them trained and make sure that they're being properly supervised to be providing these services to the veterans that our veteran population deserves? I acknowledge that there's a lot of retraining that is required of some of the existing staff to bring them more up to par, and I think that reflects in our accurate reporting on our performance criteria. It shows that we are falling very far of the mark. So right now we are taking it 1 year at a time, but the hope is that this personnel reorganization will be sufficient to get us through the next 5 years. Thank you, sir.
Chair, Delegate Halona.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Thank you, committee members. The question that I have right now for you, Mr. Zerline, is we're still working on the new plan of operations that hadn't been approved yet, and the housing also. And so does the budget that we're working on now reflect in the new plan of operations that we still have to get approved with all the changes that's on the budget that we're working on today? Well, is that reflected in the new plan of operations as well as the housing? That's my question, sir.
Thank you, sir. And I think that question is very on point. These new personnel positions are the exact same positions that were recommended in, I believe it was 41-20, the modification to the Veterans Administration Plan of Operation that went through 5-day comment period in February and that was taken for action by this committee May, I believe it was, and was voted down. Since then, I have not heard any feedback from any of the committee members, to include yourself, sir, as the sponsor for that legislation, on recommended changes for that plan of operation. So it remains our hope that when this committee does take for action again the revisions to the plan of operation, that they will go through as we have recommended, specifically for the personnel. When it comes to the housing program, and thank you, sir, for bringing that up, there are 3 positions that we are omitting out of the general fund staff position from the Form 3. 2 of those positions were being general fund funded for the housing program. There was a housing supervisor and a senior housing specialist. If the revisions, legislative changes for CS 4813 go through, that program will fund the positions that administer the housing program. So that would bring back the program supervisor 1 position, the senior housing specialist position, and 5 housing specialist positions, 1 for each agency. Right now, only the senior housing specialist position is occupied, and if that legislation amendment does not make it before the end of this fiscal year, that 1 individual would be furloughed until either the program legislation funds his position again, or additional appropriations are made for general fund to account for the housing program position. But it is our position right now that while there is a housing program, staff administrating that program should be paid from that program. And if the program ends, those positions go away. I hope that answers your question, sir. Thank you.
Follow up, Chair. Yes, I did. That does answer my question. And there's 2 legislations that I resubmitted for the plan of operation as well as the housing. I did not make any changes to it yet, and when they come out, I guess we can remodify them or make any changes necessary as we move to approve them. But right as of this day, I haven't made any changes, so everything that was submitted will reflect the new budget at this point. So I'm hoping those things are going to come out this week. I was told they were going to be worked over on the weekend, but I haven't seen or heard anything yet that they're ready yet. So I'll check on that later on here this afternoon. Thank you, Chair.
Committee members, anybody else have a question?
So this is Delegate Crotty with the question.
Oh, yeah, Shama. Thank you for joining the call. You may go ahead. Pose your question.
Shiyaj, Chairman So, delegates, HES committee, and staff with Mr. Z from the Veterans Affairs. In reviewing the budget and looking at how this will affect not only all of Navajo Nation veterans across the Scar boundaries and beyond, I'm going to raise a concern because I do see where some of the programs are reverting back to how funding was allocated in the past. In particular, the consolidating all of the chapter veterans allocation and pulling that into the agency level. That's actually how this program used to function. And what the former head on activity,
Thank you.
Am I clear? On the 22nd council, what they did was decentralize that funding because it was clear that veterans were being left out. And so without a Navajo Nation clear veteran count, it was a challenge receiving the same amount of service. And so in this presentation, it's not clear on why there's this consolidation. I did hear that some chapters are not spending some chapter veterans organizations are not expending all of their dollars. And what was very concerning is that some chapter veterans organizations are overexpending. And I'm not really sure how a program or a budget line item can be overexpended. And so that goes back to the personnel and the administration. So I'll need that to be answered. And I would request, and I just went on the website, I would request a breakdown of Northern Agency. At this time, I feel comfortable in stating that Northern Agency veterans were not aware of this budget. And so I'd like to pull those numbers, requesting administration to pull those numbers on behalf of our Northern Agency veterans, so we should look at those numbers. And I would be ready at Budget and Finance to make an amendment to make would have the services that this funding allocates to them. So I'd like those two questions to be answered. How does a veteran chapter line item, how is the over expenditure possible with the administration oversight, and then the request for the Northern Agency breakdown. Thank you, and I do have a few more.
Thank you, Mr. Swerline.
To start answering that question, at the beginning of my tenure as the acting director, I had requested of all 110 chapter veterans organizations to provide me with a veteran count. 14 chapters responded. Most of those chapters came from Eastern Agency. So without any recourse to compare numbers from the agencies, I was left to pull files of individual veterans at the agency offices. Based on physically counting hard copy records of the veterans that are registered with each agency, Chin Lee had a total of 1,284 veterans, surviving spouses, and Gold Star mothers. That made up 10.37%. Crown Point, 2,331. That made 18.82% of the total veteran population. Fort Defiance, 4,138. 33.41%. Shiprock, 2,257. That made 18.22%. And Cuba City had 2,375 for a total of 19.18%. That gives the entire Navajo Nation right now, based on our hard copy veteran files, 12,385 total veterans, surviving spouses, and Gold Star mothers. And when all of the existing legislation says equal distribution, when we don't have accurate counts of which veterans are in which chapters, the only number we can work with is based on the agency. So when we break down Shiprock agencies, 18.22% of the total $4,213,900 for FY21. That makes Shiprock's fair share allocation as an agency $767,927. Next fiscal year, FY22, if we are able to accurately reconcile where our veteran population is distributed, we can entertain going back down to the 110 chapter distribution. But right now, this is the only thing that we can see to make it more fair for every veteran, Gold Star mother, and surviving spouse to have equal opportunity to be able to apply for financial assistance benefits. It goes back to, like I was briefly saying, when a chapter has a large allocation and can only expend 8%, the rest of that money under the 110 chapter distribution carries over to that same chapter. And over the last couple of years, that chapter has built up over $100,000 worth of trust fund money that they cannot use. And so consolidating all of the 110 different business units into 5, take all of this carryover money from the current fiscal year and maintain it within the agency, and it becomes available to the entire veteran population within that agency. And it is our sincere hope that it makes it more available to the veteran population at large to have better access to those benefits. When it comes to having an agency, a chapter overexpend, I have no answer on that one. We are supposed to have several ledgers. The chapters were supposed to have ledgers. We were supposed to be doing reconciliation between the agencies and the chapters to ensure both ends of the equation were using the same numbers. When we look at regular spending under general fund, accounts payable does not let us expend funds from an account that has an insufficient balance. I would think that that same logic applies to the trust fund. So when a chapter overexpends, I don't know where that error lies. It may be that there were multiple requests processed at the exact same time when there was a sufficient balance for any one of those requests, but when they were all processed, it moves a chapter into the negative. That's the only conclusion that I can come to on that one. I hope that answers your question, ma'am.
Honorable Roddy, do you have follow-up?
Thank you, Chairman. So I do. Actually, I think we need to be clear on how the money is administered. The veteran money is administered. We have tried in the past that the chapters could have the opportunity to administer funding. Is that what I'm hearing? That chapters are administrating the funds? I would need clarification, Chair, so that I could ask my follow-up question. Thank you.
Mr. Swerline.
The answer is no. Chapter is directly administrating the funds. The chapter veterans organizations have been doing budgets for the annual appropriations that were going to that chapter, and then they would distribute their funds into which sub-accounts they wanted that funding to be distributed to, and then the agency office would manage the budget transfer request signed by me, reviewed by the Office of the President and Vice President, and executed by the Office of Management and Budget. So at this time, none of the chapters themselves are administrating any portion of the Veterans Trust Fund.
Yes, thank you for that clarification, Chair. If I cut out, please let me know. I don't know what's going on with my service, but I apologize because Chairman and HES committee members, when there's an issue with over expenditure of the veterans' dollars, that lies with the Veterans Administration, and so I will request that the division or the director provide information on those over expenditures occurred and how going to be that if a chapter has a pot of money that's available, then how is the department or the program providing technical assistance to that chapter veterans organization to expend those dollars? I'm not sure in terms of what chapter veteran organizations are having those challenges, and that's why I believe we need to see those documents in terms of what is the current funding, how much has been carried over, and more importantly, who has overspended. I also would like the initial request for the breakdown of Northern Agency. I understand and recognize each veteran agency organization may have a different interpretation and opinion. And so I would like to bring this information back to Northern Agency veterans, my district in particular, so that they understand what's occurring and that I could get some guidance in terms of how their funding is being, I don't want to say, well, it is being redistributed. If it goes back to the agency, for me, that's problematic. I think it's to fix that administratively. Nation veterans get that count. And my hope would be that the President and Vice President help and that we will have an accurate number of Navajo veterans. Thank you.
Come on, Miss Crowdy, you lost contact.
Oh, I'm sorry, Chair. I finished. The question was, who's responsible for the Navajo Nation veterans count? Thank you. I'll go back up.
Mr. Swerline.
The Veterans Administration is responsible for the veterans count. Ultimately, that falls on me. There has been discussion within the executive branch of trying to use the 2020 census information to gather numbers on the veteran population. Based on the reports that I've heard from the census so far, we have, I think it was less than 10% of the Navajo veteran population is responding to the census. And if we're getting numbers that are that low, the census will not be an accurate count for the Navajo veteran population. The only option that I can see to reconcile our files is input from the chapter veterans organization. And I'm not saying this applies to the chapters within your district or specifically chapters within Shiprock, but my staff and I have seen, and I'm sure some of you as well have seen, that there are divisions within the veteran population within chapters, that depending on who is running that chapter veterans organization, certain veterans will have nothing to do with the group. And when we try to find out how many veterans are in there, we have reason to believe within some of our chapters that those numbers will be suspect, that they may not include as many veterans as there are within that chapter, and that will impact the amount of funding that goes to that chapter. When we take a look at what is currently sitting in Shiprock agencies, trust fund balance for the agency as a whole, we're sitting at $73,484. In FY19, the trust fund carried over $1.6 million in unspent funds. Based on the numbers we have from Shiprock, we can conservatively estimate that the entirety of the trust fund is going to carry over at least $750,000 for FY20. So it is our hope that by redistributing the funds at the agency and not down to the chapter level, that more of those funds will be able to be expended so there's less carryover and we're assisting more veterans. With the agencies managing the trust fund balances in each of the different assistance accounts, emergency, hardship, energy, housing, home improvement, stipends, supplies, catering, the agency office is going to be able to monitor the balances allocated within each agency. And we're going to be doing fewer budget transfer requests. And hopefully this will lighten the load on the Office of Management and Budget, and it will allow those budget transfers to occur more quickly to make sure that the veterans always have that assistance that they need. Hope that answers your question, ma'am. Thank you.
Mr. Schwerlein, in one of your responses, you stated that none of the chapters handled their veteran fund. And so it's the program's responsibility on the flip side of your answer. So again, how does overexpenditure occur? And in regard to the chapters that have low enrollment monies or enrollment numbers, has there been outreach by the agency staff? Has there been newsletter, a public service announcement, those types of outreach to occur so that, that dilemma that you're saying is depending on who's at the chapter organization, the leadership may encourage or discourage attendance or even participation? Has the agency staff done outreach? The other part, I guess, is I'll wait for your answer.
To the first part of your question, sir, regarding over expenditure, yes, the first line of defense is the agency office. The agencies should and are supposed to have accurate accounting of where those trust fund dollars are. They are supposed to not allow over expenditure. That is the job of an account maintenance specialist, maintain those accounts to make sure that before they have a request go through for processing, that there is sufficient funding in that account. One item contributing to this that we have found with over expenditures or negative balances in accounts, not necessarily because of over expenditures, is because of the overload of work at the Office of Management and Budget. When we submit a budget transfer, we hope that they are able to process it in a timely fashion. We know from experience that sometimes along the lines, those budget transfers don't always make it onto the desk of the individual who is going to execute those transfers. And so a budget transfer is duplicated and resubmitted. And it has happened where both of those budget transfer requests, identical requests for the same chapter, are both processed. And somehow that ends up with a negative balance. And it all comes back to, like I said, it depends on the order in which things are processed. If two duplicate transactions are happening at the same time, independently, each one may be a valid transaction, but together they invalidate each other. So when they're put into the system, they're expected to be good. But by the time they both process, that's where it creates a problem. And that's where the Veterans Administration has to work better with the Office of Management and Budget to figure out ways to avoid having that happen. And perhaps if the solution is a legally viable solution, perhaps a trial basis for one fiscal year, the Veterans Administration is permitted to execute those budget transfers with the Office of Management and Budget providing oversight on our actions so that they can ensure that we are not executing budget transfers that are in violation of the Budget Instruction Manual and instructions passed by the Budget and Finance Committee. As to the second part of your question, sir, staff outreach. This is one of the things that will be addressed by additional personnel. Right now, the sheer volume of requests and the time that it takes to process financial assistance requests does not allow for much additional time for the staff to do anything other than process those requests. The current staff that we are supposed to have under the currently authorized plan of operation and the budgeted position, we do not have all of our positions filled at each of the agency offices. Right now, the Eastern Agency Office is short one person, which means they only have 2 working in that office. Shiprock is now short 2 staff members. They only have 1 working in that office. Fort Defiance now has 3 staff members, as does Tuba City and Chinle. So they are working on making sure their process is a little bit more refined so that they can have more time to do more community outreach. But over the last several months with the COVID pandemic, the traditional community outreach of attending chapter veterans organization meetings has been non-existent. Since the meetings have not been being conducted, it makes it difficult for the staff to actually attend a non-existent meeting. But moving forward, what we would like to be able to do are the newsletters, are the radio announcements, and we do have plans right now and revisions in the works of updating the administration webpage so that our newsletters and our director updates and agency updates will be available to at least a percentage of the veteran population. There won't be any one method that we can implement to ensure that community outreach hits every single veteran out there. The best that we can do is the tools that are at our disposal, and communication face-to-face, social media platforms, web-based platforms. Right now, that is where the Navajo Nation is moving, but we also have to rely on those veterans who have that access to pass that information to the veterans who don't. So it's something that it's a revolution that is happening within the veteran population. More people are starting to get the information, and other people are starting to ask the correct questions to be able to engage those conversations so that those outreach efforts are more successful. So even if we do maintain that we are going to be doing veteran drives, registration drives, then it does fall onto the individual veteran, and they would have to contact the agency office. And unless they disclose their chapters, then we would only have them registered as the agency veteran. Hence the reason why we're going back to the agency distributions of those funds. I hope that addresses your question, sir. Thank you.
Mr. Schwerlein, at the agency level, how is your book set up to keep track of the chapter allocation?
The books that we use are the FMIS system. It's the same system that the Office of the Controller is using and that the Office of Management and Budget is using. When we pull up any given chapter's allotment, that shows the money that is in that account at that point in time. It does not show us requests that are in the pipeline for processing by accounts payable. It does not show us pending budget transfer requests. So it falls on internal record keeping to make sure that pending requests are not going to take any of those accounts into the negative. That pending budget transfer requests will do the same. They will not take an account into the negative. And this is one thing that the Office of Management and Budget has been very exceptional at correcting us on, is by the time we are able to get them a budget transfer request, the amounts that we put on our paperwork as reflected in that account are no longer valid, meaning that there have been veterans assistance checks that have been issued and drawn on those accounts. So the Office of Management and Budget will not process a budget transfer that indicates this account will go into the negative. They kick those back and they ask us for a revision. So it falls on the accuracy of FMIS, which does have the time lag, and the accurate record keeping of the account maintenance specialists at each of the 5 agents. And if those records are not consistently reconciled, that's where we start running into over expenditures. But those are, like I said, those are supposed to be caught by both the Office of Management and Budget and accounts payable. I think, and this is my opinion, that the final check in the system is accounts payable. They are the ones that issue the check, and that is the final point that can draw an account into the negative. So if there is a break in the system somewhere where we have processed a assistance application as clear to be paid and accounts payable processes it with insufficient funds being in that account, that's where the system is broken. But I cannot say that the fault lies solely with either accounts payable, with Office of Management and Budget, or with my staff. Primarily, yes, with my staff. But there are checks and balances in the system that should be catching some of these overdrafts. Thank you, sir.
Okay, follow-up question. Ms. Lowell, Mr. Willie, Mr. Francis, what we have before us is the 2021 budget. That will just be business unit. What happened to the chapter allocations that have those other business units? And those are tied to last year's budget going forward. Does all of that revert back to the Veterans Trust Fund as a whole? Or is those balances going to, in addition to this year's request, are those going to go into the agency's or budget? The remaining balances from the chapter's allocation, what happens to that? That's in FY 1920 budget. And then this budget request now is new monies that will be allocated to 5 business units. So that's my question. Hello.
We heard you. Sir, this is Director Zorlan. Was that question directed at me or OOC and OMB?
OOC and OMB, and even Legislative Council.
Sure, this is Kristen. I can say with all certainty, I do not know the answer to that question. That is a technical question for OC and OMB. And I'm not sure they're on the line anymore, so perhaps can ask them to pop back on because there's a question. Sure.
Sir, this is Director Zwerland. I can provide an answer to that question.
I didn't ask you. I asked OOC and OMB. Ms. Martinez, can you get Mr. Willie and Mr. Francis back on the line?
Yes, sir.
Hello? Can you hear me? This is Robert Willie.
Okay, Mr. Willie. Mr. Francis, is he on the line yet?
Hello?
This is Emmett Francis.
Okay, both of you, Mr. Francis and Mr. Willie. I have a question. Of the 110 business units that are tied to FY 19 and 20, those dollar amounts in that trust fund, what happens to them on September 30th? Are they maintained, or will they be transferred into the 5 agency business unit numbers?
Okay, this is Emmett Francis.
Go ahead.
Those balances that are still in FY 19 budget, they have not been transferred over into FY 20. I had sent out instructions several months ago on how to do that without having to do it by budget revision request. I even gave them an outline and instructions on how to do that. I never got any answer back, and the only one that did finally submit to transfer the FY19 balances into FY20 is Eastern Navajo Agents, and she did it the way I instructed the Veterans Program to do it, where you don't have to submit a budget transfer request. If you do that, it may have to go to Oversight Committee before the carryover is done. Now, that will still sit in the Chapter 110 budgets for FY20 if that carryover is transferred over. Now, from 20 to 21, there will be a problem because the money will be still tied to the business unit of the Navajo Nation chapters. And probably the only way that those funds can be transferred into another business unit that would be not a chapter business unit is for approval by the Oversight Committee to transfer those funds from 110 chapters into one business unit at the agency level. It would have to have approval from the Oversight Committee, I believe. So it's going from a different business unit into another business unit. That's usually the way the budget instruction manual reads, is that when it goes from one business unit that is different into another business unit that is different, then Oversight Committee has to approve it. If it goes from the same business unit into the same business unit, then all you need is a budget revision request to transfer those funds over. And that's the way, again, that's the way the budget instruction manual reads and so on. So that would be my answer. I don't know about controllers. I think I asked them the question some time ago on how to do that before. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, this is Robert Willie.
Go ahead, Willie.
Okay, when we calculate the carryovers actually go into the same business unit. So each chapter would be calculated, and those are the numbers that we would send to Office of Management and Budget. And from there, Mr. Francis did explain the process. So I'm hoping that this does clarify what you were asking, sir. If you had more questions, please feel free to ask away. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Committee members, do you have any follow-up questions?
Chair Wanika?
Go ahead, Tatila. Honorable Wanika.
Thank you, Chair, members of the committee. I am concerned about the change also because one of my chapters runs out of money within just a few months of the new fiscal year. So I know there's been a request as far as distribution of funds to be based on the veterans count, but it's taken a while, and now there's a change. I don't know if there was consent from the chapter organization, veterans organization. I remember last year we had a problem with Dodie. They went ahead and took funds from the agencies without the consent of the agency manager. It became a problem, and I feel this might become a problem too. So I think we need to ask more questions. So for that reason, I'm going to motion to table this and revisit this on Thursday, because I think redistribution of the chapter trust fund might become an issue if we don't make a decision that will be as far as the chapter doctrine. I think we need to have more discussion, this chair. Thank you.
Committee, I'll recognize that motion to table and revisit on Thursday. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Delegate Slater. Second by Delegate Slater. Tabling motion has no debate, so I'll call for the question. Mr. Mose.
Yes, sir. Honorable Paul Begay Jr. Green. Honorable Paul Begay Jr. votes green. Honorable Carl Russell Slater.
Delegate Slater, green.
Honorable Carl Russell Slater votes green. Honorable Pernell Halona. Honorable Pernell Halona. Honorable Charlene So.
I vote green.
Honorable Charlene So votes green. Honorable Edison J. Wanika.
Green.
Honorable Edison J. Wanika votes green. Last call, Honorable Pernell Halona.
Halona votes green. I also wanted to try to ask a question about that. If we table it till Thursday, the next round, who's going to be working on that, directing to work on that to give us a good answer of what needs to happen by that same day? With that, I'll vote green.
Honorable Pernell Halona votes green. Chair, you have a vote of 5 in favor, 0 opposed.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mose. So, vote of 5 in favor, 0 opposed. Chair not voting. This legislation will be brought back to the table on Thursday on when we revisit all the budgets too. Thank you, committee members. In the meantime, we'll get further clarification on what will happen to the chapter allocations that are pre-existing committee members. With that, Ms. Martinez, what is the next item on our agenda for today?
Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to unmute. We have Division of Social Services at 1 o'clock. Chair.
Okay, committee, what we'll do is take a 30-minute break, and then we'll all call back in. So I'll call for a recess, committee members.
Chair, I'll make the motion to recess for 30 minutes.
Okay, thank you. We have, okay, we have a motion to recess. Okay, we'll go into recess. What's that? Oh, yes, excuse me, I'm sorry. We're done with this particular agenda. I'm sorry, committee members. Too many things rolling right now.
Chair Wanika?
Yes, go ahead,
Chair,
Priscilla.
we have an agenda for the veterans, and we have totally new agenda for social service. Does that mean we adjourn this one and then reconvene again at 1 o'clock, or does it recess?
Yes, at if we could get that motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, Helena.
Motion to adjourn by Helena. Who's second?
Second, Wanika.
Okay, motion and a second to adjourn. Thank you, committee members, for pointing it out, and even staff for pointing that out.
Please get a vote.
Yes, roll call vote, please.
Honorable Paul Begay Jr. Honorable Paul Begay Jr. votes green. Honorable Carl Russell Slater. Honorable Carl Russell Slater. Honorable Pernell Helona.
One votes green.
Honorable Pernell Helona votes green. Honorable Charlene So.
I vote green.
Honorable Charlene So votes green. Honorable Edison J. Winika. Honorable Edison J. Winika votes green. Chair, a vote of 4 in favor, 0 opposed at 12:29.
Lunchtime.
We are adjourned. Call back in at 1. Thank you.
Oh, it always, yeah. Oh, sir.
Calling back in, this is Beverly.
Our Beverly is Leonard.
Division of Social Service said they bring in some binders to the front, but we need the electronic version also.
I haven't seen the electronic version yet.
I know.
Okay, and the binders. I'll trade up front right now.
Okay.
I'll let Trey know to bring it back here.
Hi, Beverly. This is Deanna Neswood Gishi. Brenda is scanning the documents as we speak, so you should be receiving an electronic copy. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gishi.
Hello. Hello. Everybody back
Hello,
yet?
this is Leonard.
Ah, not there, Leonard. We're just waiting now.
Yes, sir. There's Honorable Paul Begay here with me.
Leonard.
Leonard,
Delegate Amber Claudi's on the line too. Can you add her to the sign-in sheet?
Okay, all right.
This is Delegate Charlene, so I'm back on.
Hello, is everybody back on the line?
Tom knows.
Chair, Delegate Wanika is on the line now.
Okay, that makes 2 of us.
Chair, this is Leonard. We should have 4 in line. Yourself, Honorable Paul Begay Jr., Honorable Charlene So, and Honorable Edison J. Winika.
Thank you, Mr. Mose. So let's go to calling this meeting to order for Health, Education, Human Services Committee meeting, Oversight Budget hearing for August 24, 1 p.m. Che, Mr. Mose, roll call, please.
All right, sir. Honorable Paul Begay Jr., Honorable Carl Russell Slater, Honorable Carl Russell Slater, Honorable Pernell Helona,
Delegate Helona's here.
Honorable Charlene So,
Present.
Honorable Daniel E. So.
Here.
Honorable Edison J. Wanika.
Here.
Chair, we have 5 members, constituted quorum.
Thank you. So we'll go to, we had the invocation this morning. Committee members, do you have any announcements? If not, then let's go to item number 2, reviewing and adopting the agenda. Ms. Martinez.
Good afternoon, everyone. Agenda for the Health, Education, Human Services Committee, 24th Navajo Nation Council, Oversight Budget Hearing, August 24, 2020, 1 p.m. Presiding Honorable Daniel E. So, Chairperson Honorable Carla Russell Slater, Vice Chairperson, Place Viva Telecommunications, Window Rock, Navajo Nation, Arizona. 1, call meeting to order, roll call, invocation, announcements. 2, review and adopt the agenda. 3, oversight budget hearing. 1, presentation by Office of Management and Budget. 2, reviewing the Division of Social Services FY 2021 operating budget general funds as follows. A, Business Unit 11001, Division of Social Services, Executive Administration. B, Business Unit 117008, Navajo School Clothing Program. C, Business Unit 117022, Department of Family Services. D, Unmet Needs. 5, close the meeting, announcements adjourned. Mr. Chair, the agenda has been read into the record. And this agenda will have to be revised to include the legislation number 0176, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Okay, committee members, how do you wish to address this particular agenda item, committee members?
Chair. Motion to accept the agenda.
Chair, Honorable Edison Wanika makes the motion, second by
With the
Honorable
revised legislation.
Okay.
Second by Paul.
Okay, so we got a motion to include the revised agenda, and that would basically be the presentation by OMB, and then after that, the budget, the legislation 0176-20, and then after that, then the Division of Social Services will be able to give us the review on their general funds operating budget.
Okay.
Kayla, so we have a motion by Wanika, second by Paul.
I got a note for him.
Wanika or Halona, you.
I just stopped by to see if you guys we could do some more work on that. Oh yeah. It'll be later.
Okay, Che, Mr. Mose, roll call, please.
Okay, Chair, who seconds the motion for the revised agenda?
Paul Begay Jr.
Okay. All right, this is a roll call for the revision of the agenda. Honorable Paul Begay Jr. Honorable Paul Begay Jr. votes green. Honorable Carl Russell Slater. Honorable Pernell Halona. Honorable Pernell Halona. Honorable Charlene So.
I vote green.
Honorable Charlene So votes green. Honorable Edison J. Wanika.
Green.
Honorable Edison J. Wanika votes green. Honorable Carl Russell Slater. Honorable Pernell Halona. Chair, we have a vote of 3 in favor, 0 opposed.
Okay, committee members, that basically we adopted the revised agenda for this budget hearing. That'll take us to presentation by the Office of Management and Budget. Who do we have on the call from OMB?
Good afternoon. This is Selena Begay with OMB. I'm Senior Budget Analyst. I will be reading the OMB report.
Sheila, thank you.
Okay. On tab 2, you'll come to the OMB report, FY 2021 budget OMB report. That's the first page. The next page is the contents of this: A, FY 2021 fund type budget summary; B, FY 2020 third quarter budget status report; C, FY 2020 third quarter performance assessment report; D, FY
Excuse me,
20.
excuse me,
Yes.
Ms. Martinez,
Yes, sir.
what Ms. Begay's reviewing, when did that document get sent
I
to
just
us?
sent it also, sir. It should
Just
be-
now?
Yeah, just now.
Okay. At 1:05 p.m. So, see, I got it.
Can somebody please mute their phone?
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I'll start from the beginning again. The first page, it's FY 2020 OMB report for the Division of Social Service. The second page is table of contents. A, FY 2021 fund type budget summary. B, FY 2020 third quarter budget status report. C, FY 2020 third quarter performance assessment report. D, FY 2020 third quarter plan of operation status report. E, FY 2020 third quarter conditional appropriation summary report. Then the next page, A, FY 2021 fund type budget summary. The next page is it has a worksheet. It's listed by the business unit: 117001, 117008, 117022, 11904. And if you look at that column, it says Navajo Nation Committee Approval FY20 FY budget. The next row down, general fund total, 4,161,988. And then if you look over to a little to your right, it says fiscal year 2021 Navajo Nation Fund. Proposed general fund budget. The total for that one, $4,161,183. Indirect cost fund, $402,834. Special revenue fund external, $160,394,457. Total, $164,959,474. And then the middle column has a business unit: 117010, 117011, 117012. It's the program for daycare for Chinle, Fort Defiance, and Sherbrooke. And this one, the fiduciary fund total for FY20 general funds was fiduciary fund total was $146,000. And then if you look at the next column, the row proposed general funds, there's zero all the way down. The next business unit, overall total, if you look at the bottom, is $4,307,988. Proposed general fund overall total is $4,161,183. Indirect costs, $402,834. Special revenue fund external total amount overall total is $160,994,454. All total is $164,959,474. And then the next page, B, FY 2020 third quarter budget status report. The next page has a worksheet, has a listing of the general fund totals, all the four social service department. The original budget for the total amount for that one is $4,564,017. Revised budget amount is $5,693,902.37. Actual is $1,586,689.09. Encumbrance $63,062.04. Budget available is $4,044,151.24. Percent expended of total today as of June 30th, 2020 is 28.94%. The next column is for all the child daycare business unit. There's 3 business units. Fiduciary fund total original budget $146,000. Revised budget $146,000. Actuals $652.01. Encumbrance $1,083.65. Budget available $104,264.34. Percentage expended of total is 28.59. And then the following, you will see the budget status report for each business unit. And then that's for your review. And then on C, C, D, and F, and MPS, Janet McKay will be presenting that one. Tab C, your third quarter report, performance assessment report. There are 6 business units, and I will read the bottom overall average scores. First quarter is 2.29, second quarter is 2.36, third quarter 2.15. Moving on to tab D is the plans of operations status report. Again, you have 6 business units. These business units have a current plan of operation, and they've all been adopted at 2016 and 2020. Moving on to tab E, condition of appropriation summary report. This business unit has 1 condition of appropriation, which is number 1, and the status, which was due at the end of the second quarter. We did have a response in the third quarter, and their status is compliant. The second one is a legislative concern number 12. This was due at the second quarter as well. They did respond in the third quarter, and the status is non-compliant. Mr. Chair and members of the committee, this concludes the OMB budget report. Thank you.
Thank you. Committee members, do you have questions on the presentation by OMB?
Delegate Slater.
Oh, Vice Chair Slater.
Can OMB clarify the proposed carryover amounts for the relevant general funds business unit numbers?
Hello, this is Selena Regay. That was not, I did not include this in the fund type summary report.
Okay, because I was looking at the legislation and it says that all carryover amounts will be, I'm on my phone, I can't pull it back up again, but I think for 2 business units in executive administration, they are proposing carrying over the balances. And I don't know if that's in this presentation or we can wait for later from social services to present that.
Chair, if I may, this is Kristen.
Go ahead, Ms. Lowell.
Chair, I am just looking through the OMB presentation, and I see that this Division of Social Services, I don't know if it was done by them or previously by HES, but there's a new form created, Exhibit F, which is in general not part of the Oversight Committee exhibits. So what Delegate Slater is referring to was a form that was created to adapt to the needs, requesting carryover. It's not officially, in quotes, officially part of the Oversight Committee exhibit. So I need to go back over to the legislation and look at something. I think we may need to do an amendment if the committee would like to include this in the actual legislation, because typically the legislation does not have Exhibit F, Chair.
Okay.
And I see flipped back over to the legislation, and I see that this is actually in the legislation. So two options: leave it in, but if that's the case, I need to amend exhibit the legislation, paragraph B on page 2, because exhibit F is not reflected in the body of the legislation, and each exhibit referred to, or each exhibit included in the legislation needs to be specifically referred to in the body of the legislation. So if you would like to leave that in, I need to do an amendment, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Shania, this is Doug Slater. Can I make one more comment?
Yes, let's finish the OMB presentation first, Ms. Lowell, and then after that we can address the legislation. Go ahead, Honorable Slater.
Thank you. I was just going to let my colleagues know that I will motion later to table this, because I personally need a lot more time to review all of the information in there till Thursday. I don't know if that's going to inform the discussion, and maybe we can have a list of recommended amendments that will go to Ms. Lowell that can be reconciled for Thursday. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, committee members, when we get to the legislation, we'll look at that. Any follow-up questions on the OMB presentation? Again, if there's no questions, I'd like to pose a question to Ms. Brigade. These carryover, there's going to be a budget balance. The personnel expense go to personnel lapse funds, but the operational expenses, are you going to want to just carry it over, or it'll all just be lumped into another category? Ms. Begay.
Okay, the way we do our presentation on the part for the fund top budget summary is initially with, like I said, that spreadsheet, the Navajo Nation Council approval of FY20 general fund budget from the very beginning, and then later in the year all the personal lab is done, but we don't include that one in. But if there was any personal lab that was given to them, it will be included in here. But in the Division of Social Service, they did not get any personal lab during the budget session.
Okay.
That's why it's not included in here.
Okay. So Sheila, committee members, any questions? Okay. So as we did in the previous budget discussion, I entertain a motion and a second to adopt their presentation, OMB's presentation. The chair's open for a motion.
Motion, Delegate Slater.
Sheila, thank you. And then we have a second by Honorable Wanika. Further discussion? Okay. Che, Leonard Mose, roll call vote, please.
Aye, sir. Honorable Paul Begay Jr. Honorable Paul Begay Green. Honorable Carl Russell Slater.
Green, Delegate Slater.
Honorable Carl Russell Slater votes green. Honorable Pernell Helona. Honorable Pernell Helona. Honorable Shirley So.
Helona votes green.
Honorable Pernell Helona votes green. Honorable Charlene So, Honorable Charlene So, Honorable Edison J. Wadika, Honorable Edison J. Wadika votes green. Chair, a vote of 4 in favor, 0 opposed.
Thank you, committee members. Thank you, OMB. Your presentation is accepted by the committee by a vote of 4 in favor, 0 opposed, the chair not voting. Now we go into legislation 0176-20. Ms. Martinez.
Good afternoon again, everyone. Legislation number 0176-20, an action relating to Health, Education, Human Services Committee approving and recommending to the Budget and Finance Committee the proposed fiscal year 2021 budget for the Navajo Nation Division of Social Services. Mr. Chair, the committee is the final authority that the legislation has to be ready and entire being enacted. Section 1, Authority A, the Health, Education, Human Services Committee is a standing committee of the Navajo Nation Council. 2, NNC, Section 400A. B, the Health, Education, Human Services Committee is the Oversight Committee for the Navajo Nation Division of Social Services. 2, NNC, Section 401C1. C, each Oversight Committee shall review and make recommendations to the Budget and Finance Committee concerning the budget in accordance with the annual budget instructions. 12, NNC, Section 840A. Section 2, Findings A, the Health, Education, and Human Services Committee held a budget hearing and took budget testimony regarding the Navajo Nation Division of Social Services. Fiscal year 2021 budget. 12, NNC, Section 840A. B, the Health, Education, and Human Services Committee recommends to the Budget and Finance Committee a fiscal year budget for the Navajo Nation Division of Social Services. 12, NNC, Section 840A. Section 3, approving and recommending to the Budget and Finance Committee the proposed fiscal year 2021 budget for the Navajo Nation Division of Social Services. A, the Health, Education, Human Services Committee hereby acknowledges the proposed Navajo Nation fiscal year 2021 budget for the Navajo Nation Division of Social Services recommended by the President of the Navajo Nation as provided on Fund Type Budget Summary attached as Exhibit A. B, the Health, Education, Human Services Committee requests that the Budget and Finance Committee and Navajo Nation Council adopt the changes to the budget as set forth in the General Fund Comparative Summary. Exhibit B, recommended changes to the General Fund Budget. Exhibit C, recommended conditions of appropriation and legislative concerns. Exhibit D, and recommended unmet needs. Exhibit E. C, the Health, Education, and Human Services Committee authorizes the committee chairperson or vice chairperson to meet and negotiate with the Budget and Finance Committee on these recommendations. Attached are Exhibit A in the amount of $115,405,231. Exhibit B in the amount of $4,564,017. Exhibit C is listing 3 business units: 117001, 117008, 117022. Exhibit D is listing 117001, 117001, 117008, and 117022. Exhibit E is blank, and F is listing the carryover general fund budget for business unit 117001 and 117022. Attaches memorandum to Honorable Daniel So from Ron Haven dated August 13, 2020. Legislative Branch Internet Public Review publication date posted August 13, 2020, 7:38 p.m. requesting digital comment. Legislative Branch First Report Internet Public Review Summary posted August 13, 2020, 7:38 p.m. 5-day comment period ended August 19, 2020. Supporting comments none, opposing comments none, inconclusive comments none. Signed by Julissa Johnson, Office of Legislative Services, August 19, 2020, 8:17 a.m. Mr. Chair and members, the legislation has been read into the record.
Motion, Delegate Paul Begay.
Thank you, Chair. Motion by Honorable Paul Begay, second by Honorable Cornell Halona. Who from the Division of Social Services is going to present?
Good afternoon. Honorable Chair So, members of the Health, Education, Human Services Committee, I am Deanna Nesugishi, Division of Social Services Executive Director. I'd like to have my opening remarks. The Navajo Nation Division of Social Services provides an array of human services and social services through 6 departments and programs with a combined budget of $164,959,474 in federal, state, and Navajo Nation funding. And there are currently 522 full-time employees. Of the total Division of Social Service funding, 96% is federal, 2% is state, and 2% is the Navajo Nation General Fund. The majority of the funding are restricted to one or several specific services, and all federal funds are subject to comply with the federal rules and regulations governing its use. For fiscal year 2020 general fund budget, the Division of Social Services operated with a total of $4,553,461. These funds were appropriated for the Office of the Executive Director, Navajo School Clothing Program, and the Department of Family Services. The propriety funds are for the child care centers in the amount of $140,000. The Division of Social Services fiscal year 2021 general fund budget request is for a total amount of $4,564,017, which is $78,434, or 1.75% above the fiscal year 2020 approved general fund budget. This request will support the following: the Office of the Executive Director for $1,675,543, the Department of Family Services for $1,250,904, and the Navajo School Clothing Program for $1,637,570. The Navajo School Clothing Program is slated for an increase of $78,434. The fiscal year 2021 Division of Social Services major priorities. I'm listing 5. The Division of Social Services aims to connect all its departments and programs with one server to operate with the same case management software, which is the Tribal Assistance System, also known as TAS, and to store data at one secure data center. It will provide a centralized database of secured program and client information for departments and programs with defined module tailored to the unique needs, tracking referrals, cases, payments, reporting, and meeting all requirements aimed at an effective and efficient paperless service delivery. The next priority is to strengthen the administrative and technical support to the departments and programs. In coordination with the KC Family Program, continue with implementation of the Division of Social Services strategic plan, utilizing the innovation teams to build a stronger team. Third priority, establish an accounting and contract compliance section within the Department of Family Services to improve the contracting activities and process of payments to vendors timely. Fourth priority, begin slowing down the Title IV-E funding in preparation for the Children's Bureau 496 financial report is under review by the Navajo Nation contracted auditors. The fifth priority is throughout the duration of the COVID-19 pandemic, direct service delivery will continue to be implemented safely with the highest precautions, utilizing different modalities such as email, telecommunications, virtual meetings, including Skype, WebEx, and Zoom. Thank you, Mr. Chair. That concludes my opening remarks.
Committee members, questions?
Tonight, this is Doug Slater.
Go ahead, Vice Chair Slater.
Thank you. Dr. Nesugishi, I know that you had developed a template for reforming the division and making plans of operations amendments, and some of those have been considered and approved by the HES committee. I think there are other ideas as well. I was wondering if you could tie the changes that took place over the past year to your vision for fiscal year FY21 and create a little bit more of a narrative to accompany the budget that's been presented. Thank you.
Ms. Neswood Gishy?
Mr. Chair, thank you, Honorable Slater, for your question on templates of plan of operation to changes to fiscal 21. We have Ms. Brenda Sosi is going to get the Gantt chart so we can make reference as well. Thank you.
Committee members, any other questions?
Leonard, who motioned for legislation for the second? I'm sorry.
Paul Begay made the motion and Edison Wanika second.
Thank you.
Chair, this is Leonard. That would be pronounced Malona. Second that motion, sir.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mose, for that correction. Ms. Neswood Gishy, Chair has a question.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay, on the Navajo Nation announcement, there was this, I think, a press release or something that the Navajo Family Clothing Program has been renamed. And how is that happening without an amendment to the plan of operation?
This is Delegate Slater. Did my call drop or are they still on the line?
There's a
Mr. Chair?
Brenda Sosi is supposed to answer.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. And so when we submitted the plan of operations for the committee's review, and so when it passed in January 8, 2020, this is where the school clothing program was not, it wasn't a separate standalone, it was under the executive office. And so when it moved over into the Department for Self-Reliance, that did move over with the school clothing program. So I understand your question, Mr. Chair. I can do further follow-up in that so that you're correct if it needs to have additional changes. We will look into that, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, our policy, Ms. Rosalind Begay would try to add more clarification, please.
Mr. Chair, may I have Mike?
Go ahead.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. This is Rosalind Begay with the Division of Social Services. So the Navajo School Clothing Program, it's a service program, was within the Division of Social Service plan of operation. It did not have its own plan of operation. Thereby, what the division did was they did the assessment, they did the light services like the financial assistance services, including the school clothing program. Since the Department for Self-Reliance, this is part of the strategic planning that the division and its staff did. So services such as school clothing is a financial assistance. DSR, Department for Self-Reliance, has a case management software, TAS. So those financial assistance services and functions were transitioned to the Department for Self-Reliance under its direct service component of DSR, so that services will not be duplicated. And so TANF already has also a school clothing assistance. So then the school clothing program was transferred to DSR under DSR's plan of operation. So TANF, so that TANF customers, children who are who aren't in the TANF program do not also get travel clothing program assistance that's funded by Navajo Nation General Fund. To the end, more school children who are attending school will be served. Mr. Chair? And to answer your, your question about the name change, because the school clothing is not, that assistance is not limited to school clothing. So it could also include other service provisions such as school supplies that children may need. So then it was changed to Navajo Education Incentive. Mr. Chair?
I know it may be a little trivial, but it seems like the way the committee had adopted it was under the Navajo School Clothing Program. And now there's a education incentive. It's been publicized without a change in the plan of operation. That's all I'm, making that need for amendment to the plan of operation.
Shania, this is Delegate Slater. I have another question.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Ms. Neswood-Gishi, can you walk us through the proposed carryover budget?
Ms. Neswood-Gishi or Ms. Brenda Sosi?
This is Brenda Sosi. I work for Division of Social Services. I'm the principal accountant. Mr. Chair and committee members, the question is on the carryover. The carryover for Business Unit 117001, there are still expenditures happening now, but after the reconciliation happens, that's what the carryover we are requesting for. That doesn't include the personnel lapse fund. Also for Business Unit 117022, which is Department of Family Services, that's the request for the same. We're not requesting for any carryover on the lapse fund, but after the reconciliation of the overall budget, we're requesting for the carryover. Our reason for the carryover amounts of the operating balances is the information technology that COVID-19 telework and software hardware refit that we are doing right now. We had submitted an RFP. We completed the RFP, and the cost will be $5.9 million. And for that reason, we're requesting for the carryover. We still have an available balance of like almost 75% in there. That's what we were saving our funds for that telework. So, and then also to complete, the telework projects that we have been proposing. So basically, these balances that we have, we do cover a lot of the costs. I wouldn't say a lot, but I mean some of the costs that the federal funds are unable to cover. That's when we come in to cover those costs as well. So that's the clarification on that, Mr. Chair.
Chair, I have some follow-ups.
Go ahead, Vice Chair Slater.
So I think there's two business units that are requesting carryover amounts, and you're excluding the personnel funding and really the justification. What, for the record, can you identify what the requested carryover amounts are and bring into the record and for the benefit of the Navajo people? And can you explain what percentage of the original budgeted amount they represent for those business units, excluding personnel? Or if it's easier to calculate it with personnel, use it that way.
Mr.
Okay,
Chair,
this is Brenda.
This is Kristen. Sorry, Chair. I just have something to add, but I can add it later. Sorry.
Go ahead, Ms. Sosi.
Okay, this is Brenda again. The remaining balances, what we're requesting for under those two business unit 117001, Executive Administration, and then 117022, Department of Family Services, is the remaining balances after the reconciliation of balances occur. I had indicated that there are still expenditures that are happening. What we see here in the budget status report that OMB reported for business unit 117001, total percent of expenditures 23%. So 72% is what we still need to spend. That would be the 72% minus the personnel lapse fund. Then also the same would be for family, the Department of Family Services, which the total expenditures at 57%. So the 40% will be what we will be requesting for. But like I said, I don't have a dollar amount. But after our closeouts happen, that's when we will determine the amount. Mr. Chair.
And what were the original budgeted amounts for those business units?
This is Brenda again. The revised budget amount for business unit 117001, the Executive Administration's budget is the revised budget is $2,808,465.80. So right now, what we have available is $2,135,247.61. Then for the Department of Family Services, the revised budget amount is $1,646,232.50, and the budget available is $703,070.58. Mr. Chair.
So how much of the $5.9 million for these IT upgrades do you anticipate being able to cover with the carryover budget?
Hopefully.
And where will the remaining funding come for that RFP?
The 2.8 or the 2.8 million is what we're requesting carryover. Then the difference will be from the CARES Act proposal that we had submitted.
So the 2.8 is your estimate for the carryover in general from the executive branch or from those two specific business units?
It will be from the Division of Social Services carryover general funds, the 2.8 million.
So is that 2.8 million from the executive administration business units, or is it inclusive of other? I mean, before you had said that we're not going to know the exact figure for these two until after we do the reconciling and subtract out the personal lapse funds. And now we're hearing the 2.8. I'm just trying to get some clarity on those two concepts and numbers.
This is just an estimate. That's what I'm going off of, the estimate amount.
Okay. And was it the program's intention to save this contract?
Can you repeat your question, please?
Was it the program's intention to save the funding from fiscal year 20 for this contract?
We have been, Division of Social Services, we have been planning this because we went through a thorough assessment of all the equipment under Division of Social Services. Based off of the assessment, that's when we went with the proposal, request for proposal, and that's what the proposal, the awarding proposal was $5.9 million. So we were actually estimating like $6.4 million, but when the proposals came in, it was at $5.9 million. So these are based off of our priorities as well. And when we reported 2020 priorities last year, we wanted to streamline, we wanted to improve the financial services and social services. So that part of that was the case management system. In order to do the case management system, we got to, purchase like all the hardware and the equipment. That includes all the laptops, the desktops, the scanners. So that's the whole proposal. That's the cost that we were talking about. Mr. Chair?
Chair, I have some more questions. So for this RFP, has that been shared with the committee, or what the contents were of the, winning the RFP award winner? And what the plan is? I assume this is going to be a phased-in approach, or is the idea just to spend all the money in FY21?
Ms. Sosi?
Can you repeat the question so I can answer you properly?
As the winning RFP or the awardee and their RFP or proposal been presented to the committee, and what is the plan for implementing those upgrades? Is it a phased approach? Is it all in fiscal year 21? What is the plan? And then I guess the third question I can get to is, how much general funds did the Division of Social Services receive in FY20?
Ms. Sosi.
Hello, this is Brenda again. Your question about what was the dollar amount that we received for FY20 for Division of Social Services, the overall was, we received I'm going to read the revised budget, which is $5,693,902.37, which includes the business unit 117001, which is the executive, is $2,808,465.80. Then it includes the school clothing, $1,172,470.04. And
okay, that's fine. I just wanted the total number, which you said was a little over $5 million.
That's the total amount. So what we are requesting for is the carryover for the business unit 117001, that's the executive administration, as well as Department of Family Services, business unit 117022. And then the RFP, that was our administratively, that's what we did was, to follow the procurement rules and regulations. We did go through the request for proposals. So that was how, that was how this RFP was awarded. And yes, this was the administrative plan the whole time in 2020, and it is going into 2021. And because of, certain reasons where there was a government shutdown for at least 4 or 5 months, and it was very difficult for the different offices to respond to certain requests. So that kind of took a lengthy time. However, we were successful in getting the RFP through, and now we're at the final stages. So because of the fiscal year end is nearing, and that, just to be on the safe side, that's what we are requesting for, is the carryover. So that way we meet, all the requirements for the telework projects. Chair?
And can you give us the total general funds request this year, excluding carryover, and then including carryover?
Ms. Sosi?
Okay. The OMB's report on Exhibit A, they have the 2021 fund type budget summary. On the right-hand side, it says proposed general fund budget. That's for business unit 117001. It includes administration, school clothing, Department of Family Services, which we are looking for general funds is $4,161,183. The indirect cost is $402,834. So the total amount of our request for Division of Social Services is $4,564,017. That was what was allocated to us from the Office of the President, Vice President. Mr. Chair.
Any follow-up questions? Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, this is Deanna Neswigishi. May I request for Mrs. Roxanne Gorman to provide a response on the Navajo Educational Center, please?
Hang on. Honorable Slater, did you have follow-up questions?
Yeah, I think it'd also be helpful if the executive director could explain the plan for implementing these IT upgrades. And I'd also like to hear what the analysis has been from the president's office and the program on whether it makes sense to expend fully money for these IT upgrades from our general funds and then reimburse ourselves with CARES Act funding, or to do this sort of mix. I mean, because this is going to be two different business units that you'd have to be applying to a contract if you're going to use the CARES funding and the carryover funding. So, you know, what sort of thoughts have gone into that and what they believe makes the most sense. And then, you know, this initiative was, as you said, if these upgrades are a part of a plan from the budget in FY20, you know, they're not really CARES Act eligible, right? Because they were a proposed activity and plan that isn't directly related to COVID. It may help ameliorate COVID, but it's in an existing budget potentially, or it's in the exhibits, I'm presuming, for what was passed this past year. But I really think the committee needs some more information. I mean, $5.9 million, the reason I was asking about what the appropriation was last year for general funds, you can see that the value of this contract is potentially worth more than all the money that they received past year from the Navajo Nation government. And we've had issues outside of those related to COVID for expenditures, for program delivery, and for the composition of the program after some of these changes went into effect. So I personally am very hesitant, and I don't think, only in passing have I heard about these IT upgrades and really what that would mean, but I can't recall, and I'm trying to look back through my notes about when the program gave us the full RFP and a presentation for phasing in and implementing these upgrades. So, you know, absent that, I can't have a gun to my head right now and say, you know, pass this budget and give us this money to get this done, because we're at this point. You know, there needs to be a more measured approach. And then on top of that, you know, we have to take into account that the COVID-19 affected all of our Navajo Nation programs. It slowed down funding, and what we need to do is figure out what was a genuine slowdown related to COVID, and what can we expect from programs in 2021? Because I don't really see COVID subsiding to a meaningful degree, and we should have the assumption that our programs are going to have to operate under the same circumstances. Unfortunately, they're only going to have a few months now, or maybe a couple months of quote unquote being open to assess how expenditures may take place, et cetera, in FY21. But I think if the facts are that COVID retarded spending and COVID isn't gone, then why would we be putting a lot more money into these programs instead of saving it? And when it comes to saving, I just want to say that it is ignoring the direct charge and will of the elected legislative body that approves the budget when programs save money and don't fulfill their duties in some sort of conscious or coordinated effort. And I'm not saying that 100% it happened here, but I'm probably going to say this to every single program that comes before us. You cannot just save money and then create some ideal that will, like this RFP, to spend it on, or to create some big ticket item or save funding like that. The way the budgeting works is that the money goes into the program for the year, and it should never be the presumption that there is going to be a carryover budget. And there's already legislation that's going to be introduced probably right at the end of this budget process to eliminate carryovers. I don't think they should exist in principle. It gives the wrong messages to the program that, their uncles on the committee or in the council and their aunties are going to go bail them out. And that's not what we need here. And it's, to me, particularly arrogant that when over the past year we screwed over the shelters, that we're going to propose a $5.9 million, gift to the program. I mean, does the program deserve that gift right now? Because that's what it is. It seems like program delivery is still occurring, and we need a really strong justification for the $5.9 million to even take it seriously. So thank you.
Okay. Ms. Neswit Gishu, address Honorable Slater's concerns.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for allow me to provide a response. Just some of the wording that was utilized by Honorable Slater to me wasn't appropriate when he talked about specific language about the shelters. That's offensive to me. Just want to let you know right away. And then regarding, the concern that funds were set aside specifically, and these funds were never set up in the budget. Again, we started this assessment of our overall infrastructure in November of 2019. And so by the time we had a thorough assessment, we have 99 different offices. And so once all of those have been completed, is where, we started looking at a plan to move forward. And so the plan of the infrastructure assessment, yes, it began in early part of October, November 2019. The intention was to streamline services, to reduce duplication. So it wasn't specifically in the budget because we didn't know what we would be learning from all of the offices. And so it was to upgrade IT if necessary. So when we did we received the assessment back, and that's where like almost 90% of our equipment were end of life, meaning that they were old and outdated. We had a lot of staff who were using Windows 7, which now is outdated, and there's no availability to do any upgrades. So the intention was to do the streamlining of our services so we could get good, accurate data. We could cross-reference if families are receiving certain services, how can we reach out to them to provide additional services? So that was the intent of it. So along comes the pandemic of COVID-19. And so in the Corona's Relief Fund Guidance for State, Territorial, Local, and Tribal Governments, which is dated April 22nd, 2020, in there, there's some exhibits. And so when I looked specifically at how the funds, necessary expenditures incurred during the public health emergency, on that document, there's a section under there that has 4 expenses of actions to facilitate compliance with COVID-19 related public health measures such as, and there's several bullets on there. One of the bullets says expenses to improve telework capabilities for public employees to enable compliance with COVID-19
I can't seem to have my legislation ready for the
precautions. And that's where our proposal is being submitted under Legislative Summary 0209-20 is where we do have that as Exhibit 17.
She got home over the weekend and get those done. So I can't
Can somebody please silence their phone so Director Neswit Gishu can speak clearly?
Is anybody out there that would know? No legislation for buildings. No. At all.
Somebody mute their phone.
Okay, well, she said it was the other day, so I'll share it to get
Alona,
for now.
Well, hey! You're in trouble.
Alona, we had too much information on what you're up to.
Hi. Okay.
Let me get it. Ah, this guy, huh? Hey.
Yeah, looking for
Okay, we're at a committee meeting. Please mute your phone.
good.
That's Dina.
Good. As always, I'm supposed to treat it the same thing.
Pernell, we can hear you.
I get my legislation, so they didn't do it. Now what?
I got my legislation.
Oh, really?
For the chapters.
Oh.
We can increase it to the whole thing.
All your the president stuff. I went through on that.
Go to the program. Or if you go to the chapter. So how many chapters do you have?
Money.
How many chapters do you have? 35.
Okay, Ms. Neswood Gish, go ahead, continue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And so as I was saying that when I was reviewing the guidance provided for the Corona Relief Fund, as mentioned, I don't know what you had heard, but I had said there's a number 4 on this, what I'm looking at. There's expenses of actions to facilitate compliance with COVID-19 related public health measures such as, and so there's one that expenses to improve telework capabilities for public employees to enable compliance with COVID-19 public health precautions. And that is where we had submitted a proposal to utilize the CARES Act funding for electronic case management telework expenditure plan. So that was submitted, and so it was not something that we were intending to use the funding, but it was specifically to streamline our services. We were looking at trying to do electronic case management. So the intention was when any of our staff go out to do home visits, they would have a tablet so they can do immediate assessments out in the field. If they're needing to take copies of certificate Indian blood, Social Security, they don't have to take that sensitive document back to the office, photocopy, and take it back. They can take a picture, and so the case management database is secure so that it can go into that file specifically, so it's not just like being copied and it can be lost. And so those were the initial intentions that I had started. And so this had actually started prior to my appointment in 2018. The prior director was looking towards the electronic case management database. And so there was 2 programs that already had their contracts started, the Navajo Treatment Center for Children and Families, and back then the Strengthening Families, and those had already been awarded prior to my coming into my position, Mr. Chair. So there was no intention of trying to say we want to utilize COVID or CARES Act funding specifically. There was none of those intentions. Those were unfortunately for the pandemic to occur starting March. And so when we look at trying to mitigate ongoing contact with families, this would help in that area as far as continuing to work with families so that everyone's safe, the families are safe, and as well as the employees. So that's the how we're proposing to move forward. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Committee members, any follow-up questions? I guess if there's none, then I'd like to basically ask, with all the data that's being brought forward by the Health Command Operations Center, and part of the real numbers is we're hearing an increase in domestic violence, assault, and those items, and even where there's death and children are left without parents. How is the division realigning their priorities, their programs to address those matters? It seems like these items would be something that would take a bigger priority starting with in the new budget. And so that's the question. And since we are addressing executive administration budget, what are you doing to basically have your staff address and focus in on these issues that I just outlined?
Mr. Chair, thank you for allowing me to speak in this area of social work. And so the increase in domestic violence, this is where there needs to be a continuum of care of services. And this is where the realignment proposed, and that was passed, going to Department of Family Services so they can have a continuum of services, not just to look for the safety of the victim who's suffering domestic violence, could be an individual or with their children as well. And so we do an awesome job of finding placements for an individual for safety reasons and if they're needing assistance with a protection order. The ongoing services to that family to possibly offer additional services. Maybe the individual may be staying in the home because they may lack job skills, they may lack funds, and so this is where the ongoing case management continuum of services to work with the individual. If they're needing a GED, they can be referred to appropriate services. If they're needing some financial stability, there's the TANF program that could work with the victim and the children, and at that time they can receive employment services. They can receive, if they're needing education, an example, HiSET, which used to be known as the GED. They can get on-the-job training skills. And this is where we're a disconnect, and this is where we're looking at having one, again, case management database so that we can hook up the families with available resources and doing that continuum of services. So with the domestic violence and then with the children as well, we have children that may be not having adequate services, so how can we address those continuum of services? And this is where, in our executive office, where we do have a team to assist all of the three departments and the three programs. As far as Ms. Rosalind Begay, she's here as a policy legislative. She does reach out to the other departments and programs if they're needing assistance with helping with policies, procedures, if there's position papers that have to be sent to our state or federal partners. Those is where one individual works on that. And Ms. Sosi, she does not just work in our office, she's providing assistance to the other accountants, such as Department of Family Services. So we have a team that is, we're trying to provide assistance to the various departments and programs with the level of expertise that they have. And so we will continue on that charge, Mr. Chair, and not lose sight of the families that we have to provide these ongoing services. Thank you.
Committee members?
Chair, this is Delegate Slater. I'd like to motion to table the legislation until Thursday.
Okay. Committee members, we have a motion by Honorable Vice Chair Slater to table until Thursday. Okay. Honorable Edison Wanika seconds. A tabling motion, there's no discussion. Mr. Mose?
Yes, sir. Honorable Paul Begay Jr. For table, Honorable Paul Begay Jr. votes green. Honorable Carl Russell Slater.
Delegate Slater, green.
Honorable Carl Russell Slater votes green. Honorable Pernell Halona.
Halona votes green.
Honorable Pernell Halona votes green. Honorable Charlene So. Honorable Charlene So. Honorable Edison J. Wanika. Honorable Edison J. Wanika votes green. Chair, a vote of 4 in favor, 0 opposed to table until Thursday.
Okay, thank you. A vote of 4 in favor, 0 opposed, the chair not voting. Committee members, that takes us to the end of our agenda. Ms. Martinez, please provide guidance. I lost the place on my phone, on our place on the agenda.
Mr. Chair, the committee reviewed item number 3, oversight budget hearing. 1, the presentation from the Office of OMB, and 2, the legislation 0176-20 was read into the record with the main motion held by Honorable Paul Begay Jr. and seconded by Honorable Pernell Halona. And 3, the committee reviewed the Division of Social Services FY 2021 operating budget consisting of A, Business Unit 117001, Business Unit 117008, Business Unit 117022. And I believe the unmet needs still needs to be discussed. 5, your item 5, Mr. Chair, close the meeting, announcements adjourned. Mr. Chair.
Okay. Committee members, what's your wishes? If there's no other items you want to address, chair is open for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Who was that?
Motion to adjourn, Juanica.
Oh, okay.
Second, Paul Begay.
Second by Paul Begay, to our colleagues that are in the B&F room. Thank you for being there to keep the committee anchored in our work. Mr. Mose, Ms. Martinez, so this would be the end of our 2. So our next session is at 9 o'clock in the morning.
Yes, we start with Dodie. Yes.
And 9. Then the afternoon is with who?
Department of Health.
Okay.
At 1.
All righty. Oh, Kushi, committee members, that would be the schedule for tomorrow. With that, Che, Mr. Mose, roll call vote adjourn.
Honorable Paul Begay Jr. Honorable Paul Begay Jr. votes green. Honorable Honorable Carl Russell Slater.
Delegate Slater, green.
Honorable Carl Russell Slater votes green. Honorable Pernell Halona. Honorable Halona votes green. Honorable Charlene So. Honorable Edison J. Juanica. Honorable Edison J. Juanica votes green. Chair, we have 4 in favor, 0 opposed for adjournment at 2:37.
Thank you. So with that, committee members, we are adjourned in this afternoon session of the HEDS budget hearing. I'll see you in the morning. I'll listen to you in the morning. Thank you. Have a safe day.